Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
All right. So I have Mark and I have Gordy. How you guys doing?
Great, life is good.
Yeah, doing well.
Can't complain, right? All right. We'll kick off in a couple of minutes. So far we have 22 people, and we have a total of close to 400 that registered.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
So we pretty much in line with what we've been doing for the past two. You guys can say hello to everybody. Everybody can hear everybody right now. So if you want to start, Mark.
Sure, yeah. Hi, good evening, everybody who's on. As everyone gets on, we look forward to speaking with you and providing you some valuable updates about certain state of affairs with the Foundation Fund. Well, I certainly do. I'm going to share a link in the question forum. Is that something that, Richard, I'm able to do that will be public?
Yeah, actually, I can give you the desktop whenever you're ready, and whatever you want to share, we can do it that way. And if you want to physically give something to them, we can add it as a handout. You can email it to us, and we'll post it right now, and everybody will get a piece of it. It's up to you.
Great. I just posted a question. I guess if you're able to see, it's just a link to NYSOA's website where the foundation fund, some more information about the Foundation Fund can be, found there, and that's where there's the access to upload the intent to apply application, which is the meat and potatoes of the requesting funds from the foundation.
Great. I actually put it on our PowerPoint presentation, which we're gonna start using in about 5 minutes. I have it there. So when you're doing your presentation, we'll be showing that in the background.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great.
Great. And Gordy, what's up? How you guys doing in Kansas? That's the weather like.
Oh, we're hanging in there. It goes from 80 degrees last week to this morning I woke up and it was 32. So welcome to the Midwest, I guess. We're fluctuating all over the place. But we're hanging in there, hunkered down like everybody else seems to be around the world, and trying to figure out how to do some connections with all of our officials in the referee world, trying to figure out how to do that with all of the officials. And a lot of us on our local chapter work with officials at the NYSOA, the collegiate level, with our high school officials, and with our youth officials here in Kansas State Youth Soccer Association. And so trying to keep everybody engaged and finding opportunities to do much of what you guys are doing at a smaller scale, not with the webinars, but with exploring some Google Classroom and seeing how that can work for some content management stuff with our high school and youth officials. But yeah, we're hanging in there and trying to anxiously waiting to get the green light so we can get back out on the field, and start getting yelled at and calling some games.
Great. Save some material for the next 5 minutes.
Sure, you bet. Yeah.
Don't give it all up.
My fault. I got too eager.
It's all right.
Don't worry, you could just repeat and repeat and repeat. That's the trick.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. You got that recorded, just put it on loop.
Oh, there you go. There you have it. And we'll have 3 minutes going through the date. We're gonna use this time. We still have 5 more minutes. So we have someone from believe it or not, and you probably met him, Mark, Jonathan Bonilla from Costa Rica.
Sure.
Young referee from Costa Rica, and he's been coming into the States and refereeing in different tournaments. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even know that that we'll be I'm gonna give him the mic now, so he doesn't even know. Let's see if we can catch him. Jonathan.
Hey, how are you guys?
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
We all doing great. Thank you for logging in from you in Costa Rica now, or you're back in the States. Where are you?
Oh no, I'm in Costa Rica. Actually, I live in here, and I'm studying in here. So we are at home, taking this situation with calm and everything. Just staying home and just not going out, and trying to be safe.
That's good, man. You got to stay safe, you know. Somehow we
Yeah.
got to figure it out how to do the exercises, but to stay in shape. But
Yeah. Actually, I have a private road here in my home, so I'm training. I'm using it to train. It's about 1 kilometer, so I'm just running in that road in here. It's crazy.
yeah, it's kind of tough when you live in a big city like New York, for instance, or downtown Miami or places like that where you actually live in a building with another 500 people and
Yeah.
you really don't have a place to go. So I feel really bad for like 50% of our membership
Yeah.
live in areas like that. So it's kind of very difficult for them to, deal with the crisis, work, family, and on top of that,
Yeah.
get ready for the season.
It's kind of crazy because life has changed a lot because this situation.
Yeah, no, everybody's we all dealing with this everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad you're here, and maybe we'll talk in the future. Maybe we'll bring you in um, doing the webinar if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very happy to be here with you guys. Well, actually, my English is not perfect, but I'm trying to improve it. So I can understand a lot, but it's a little bit difficult to communicate my ideas and everything. So I'm trying to improve, and I apologize for my mistakes. But I'm glad to be here, and I want to learn a lot today.
Well, you speak refereeing, you speak soccer, and that's what I do. And don't feel too bad. I've been in the States for about 40 years, and I still don't speak English, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to improve, but it's great to be here with you guys.
Uh, Thank you. All right, and that was Jonathan, believe it or not, from Costa Rica. And one day he's gonna stay here in the States for good, and we'll have him as a college official. That's for sure. Um, we got a couple of more minutes before we kick off. I'm waiting for my assistant today, which is gonna be Victoria. She is actually the chairperson for a women's program that we're gonna start in July. So it's a great time to have her helping me out with the PowerPoint and all the stuff. Since Tori is going to be doing a beautiful presentation about the differences between the men's soccer and women's soccer. All right, you know what? We can start. It's at 6:25. Why not? When the coaches are ready and the teams are ready, why not kick off early, right?
That's right.
Yeah, ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm getting the PowerPoint ready, so we're good to go. I'm gonna start sharing soon. All right, we have it. Before we go 100% with the pre-show, I had someone ask me a question, a pretty interesting question regarding what we're going through in NISOA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was done by Sergio Vasile. Let's see if we can get him in. We can throw in that question so we can kick off with that question. Sergio, how are you?
Good. How are you? How are you guys doing?
Good,
We all
great.
doing good.
Yeah,
Well,
I know. In the new norm what we have today, right?
mhm.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. So I saw you just posted a question, uh, and we have Mark here. Maybe he can give you a little insight, and then later we can throw the same question to Tori after her presentation. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, off the top of my head, as the time gets closer and closer to the upcoming season, has NISOA been talking or thinking about what the new norm is going to be, what some possibilities are with the new norm this upcoming fall season.
That's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. First of all, I definitely think during these wild and crazy times, we all need to stay safe and take our time and, adhere to all the warnings and recommendations and plan to reintegrate ourselves back into society and kick off with some good football. I can only speak on behalf of the NYSOA Foundation Fund. I can't necessarily speak on behalf of NYSOA. I do know that the executive board of NYSOA has been working very hard and diligently to ensure that they find a resolution or a solution to support what's about to what's upcoming and what's gonna be that new norm. I know that Tori, being the managing director of NYSOA and in charge of the day-to-day operations, along with Lance Van Heidsma, and they have a great president, and Gary Huber, who Gary is also on the foundation fund board. So I know that my role is just the director of the video instruction, so I'm not really someone who can speak on behalf of NYSOA. I just think that it's a great question. I think that we all have to bide our time and see what's going on. I know that in CONCACAF at the international level, we are really hyper-focused on the fact that we want to ensure that all the domestic leagues get kicked off and resume and are able to finish 2020 with getting all their games in. So I know that domestic leagues are looking to sort of all fall into the same category in terms of NBA, NFL, college football, college soccer. So I think whatever the general consensus is based upon the recommendations and whatnot from all the experts, I think is exactly what NYSOA is looking to do, is follow suit to all those high level recommendations. So great question.
Great, thank you, Sergio, for the question. If anybody else has a question before we kick off, you can put your hand up, and we'll go from there. Don't ask Mark how much he makes or how many games you can get from Gordy, because that's not going to happen. All right, it looks like Brendan has a question. Let's see if we can bring him in. Hi, Brendan, how are you?
I'm fine. We don't have no question, but I enjoy these webinars every week, and look forward to this week's conference call.
Hi, great. You know what? While you're there, why don't you tell people who you are and what chapter you belong to?
My name is Brendan Malarkey. I'm a chapter of the New York Metropolitan Intercollegiate Soccer Officials Association. Our chapter was one of the first founding chapters of NYSOA. All right. I won the longevity award back in 2015. So I've been a member of my chapter since 1993. I'm also involved with U.S. Soccer. I'm a state emeritus referee. I was on the I was doing professional soccer, not Major League Soccer. I was doing like the A-League, which is now USL 1, which I ran lines and fourth officials. And I'm also involved with the Major Arena Soccer League, which also Ryan Zikic, who's also the director of officials of the Major Arena Soccer League, is going to be your guest today. And I had the honor of working with him for the past 7 years. And I have done a couple of college medals, and they've been interesting. And also I'm also a high school official with the New York City Soccer Officials Association, and I mainly do the public school athletic leagues. I'm an assistant referee in the Catholic High School League in the 5 boroughs, and I also officiate the Yeshiva Indoor Soccer League, which the New York City Soccer Officials Association is used. So I'm also
Great. Do you
Yeah,
have a
I've been around this game a long time. I became first
So thank you.
certified.
We're happy to have you, and we appreciate you logging in and following us week after week. We'll definitely, if you put your hand up during the course of the day, we'll you can have the a question or two. Is that cool?
All right.
Fair?
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you,
Yeah, that's
Brendan.
fair.
Great.
problem.
Thank you, Brendan. All right, so that was Brendan Malarkey from New York Metro. So, Victoria, how are you, Victoria?
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Ready to go?
Yep, all set.
All right. So here are the list of our speakers. Right now we have Gordon, who's going to be kicking off first, and then Mark and Tori is going to be joining us in a little bit. So the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Well, nice to kind of sort of virtually meet you guys. I'm very excited to be working with Rich on the Women's Program Initiative for RWISOA. Just a bit of background about me. I'm an active official. I've been around US soccer for about 10 years. I got involved with college within the last 3, so very active, looking to move forward. Obviously, as a female official, trying to get and retain female referees has always been something that we all are a part of. So I'm excited to take part of this for this conference. I think we have a great opportunity here, and happy to spearhead it however I can.
It's really cool,
Great.
Victoria. That's awesome.
That's actually amazing that we are able to finally focus on the women's game and women's refereeing. That I think that's a there is a big missing part of the puzzle, the refereeing puzzle, the women's side, the female side of the game, and I think little by little we're going to start filling up the empty holes. So thank you, Victoria, and obviously Tori and every other lady out there. I know how difficult it is to go out there on the field for men, and I know it's twice as bad for females due to all the discrimination that we know the deal. So we have to fight together to finish that and turn those walls down. So let's go ahead and let's start with Gordon. You want to talk a little bit of who we are, Victoria, and so we can jump right in?
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're good now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I mean, so I am newer. I'm newer to this chapter. Again, I've been around Nashville for a little bit now, but I do appreciate all of the webinars and panels and instruction and just materials that are available through this chapter. Obviously, the on-field stuff is a great supplement as well, but really, especially during this time where we're able to keep ourselves sharp when we're not in season, when we're going through this weird scenario that none of us have really been through. So making sure that we're staying maintained throughout however long this will take. We do have access to great instructors, people within the organization. So really building up those connections as well. So I was just happy to be a part of it.
Great, and we're happy to have you. So just real quick, we're a chapter of NYSOA, and our vision, just like pretty much every other chapter, is to have our referees being recognized as top class college officials. And the way we do that is by building bridges with chapters like Kansas City and other chapters around the country to create opportunities to train, develop, and showcase our referees' talent locally, regionally, and nationwide. It's something that has been done through the U.S. Soccer platform, but it has never been done under the NYSOA platform, and that's something that we kicked off last year, and it's growing, and we love it, and hopefully NYSOA is going to pick up little pieces here and there, and maybe we'll turn it into a nice nationwide networking. Like I said, we belong to NYSOA. We are a chapter of NYSOA, and you can find NYSOA information on the website, nysoa.com. This is the list of our speakers today. Ryan emailed us a little while ago. He's got a family situation. He says not to worry, it's not an emergency. It's just a family matter. But since, and I'm going to make this public now, and I'll make it public again at 7 o'clock. Ryan, he was going to give us the official NCAA rules interpretation for RWISOA on the 24th. And since it's coming in, we're actually going to open it up. We're going to do it at 7 o'clock for everybody. So any chapter that wants to be part of it, it'll be great. Is the official NCAA rules interpretation done by the NCAA. So that will be a great opportunity. And I especially now with this crisis, we don't know when we're going to be able to get together face to face. So we can't wait until the last minute. We hoping we'll have games in September, but we don't know when everything's going to be opening. And if it opens kind of late and we wait until the last minute to do all these mandatory meetings and rules face to face, I think it's going to be too late. That's why the executive board decided to this year do the rules interpretation meeting, the mandatory one online, and being part of the. So if any other chapter would like to be part of it, more than welcome. It's open to anybody and everybody. So here we go. Let's go into one of our guests today. We like to use our webinars to showcase all the chapters so we learn from each other. And today we have Gordy from Kansas City. He's the VP, Kansas City ISOA. Gordy, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Richard, thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate the work that you guys have been doing. We've been encouraging our officials to tune in. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but to dial in, I guess, the last couple of weeks and participate in what you guys have been doing. And we've been getting a lot of good feedback and wanted to reach out to you and share that. And next thing I know, I'm here. So we're really grateful for this resource, especially when many of us are sitting at home wondering if we're ever going to get back out on the field. Wanted to follow up to a little bit what Victoria was saying. Didn't want to interrupt her. I'm thrilled to hear that there's efforts in place to support and encourage more females in the game. As a brief anecdote, we have one of our board members who I'll outline our board members here momentarily, but she went to work a game at one of the Division II schools here in Kansas City, and she was there with her two male referees were her assistant referees, and she was going to have the whistle for that match. She walked out, and the home team knew her well. The visiting team comes over. They were from some other part of the Midwest, and the female head coach comes over to her and says, so which one of those two are going to be the referee today? And she said, I am. And she stops for a second. She goes, that is awesome. I am so glad to hear that. We don't ever get to see female referees, yada, yada, yada. And it was just it was a great moment. It was, unfortunately, it's a little bit sad that that's the reality. But it was a great moment for her, and we're thankful for efforts like that to get more female officials into the game, to participate, and hopefully to model for student athletes that this is an opportunity for them to stay engaged in the game after they're done playing. I am nobody special. I'm a regular referee out of the Midwest. You're not going to see me on TV unless that episode of Cops airs. No, that's a joke. But I am nobody special here. Just your everyday run-of-the-mill guy that enjoys the game and enjoys working with officials at the youth, collegiate, and high school levels here in Kansas City. And so we are a part of the Kansas City Intercollegiate Soccer Officials Association. So we're located in the Kansas City Metro, which is a little bit bipolar. Half of it's Kansas, half of it's Missouri. As you know, some of you might know our area. So we're split down the middle. And so that poses its own little bits of challenges, but we do our best to unite our officials across the board. So I'll share a little bit more about who we are as far as mission and vision, but our nuts and bolts here, our president's Ben Goffner. myself as the vice president, Ellen O'Leary is the secretary, John Freeman is the treasurer, and then we have non-executive board members that work in different capacities to help us as the elected board members, and of course the membership broadly. So Phil Gomez works with us as far as social and administrative type things, and Luke Swartz and Kenny Bartkowski are working with us for education and training and that kind of thing, development of officials. So this is kind of our crew. We do bring in other officials to help with different things. We have a FIFA assistant referee, Kyle Atkins, that works in our chapter as well, and he's been a great resource for us, and we've had him come in and lead some things for us as well. But we serve games as far north as southern Iowa, and we have officials working outside of this, but this is the primary area. As far north as southern Iowa, we get out to central to kind of western Kansas. As far south as northeast Oklahoma, and we get officials that are almost all the way over to St. Louis. Conferences for us that we are primarily working in, a lot of our officials are working in the junior college conference here in Kansas, Kansas Junior Collegiate Conference. The NAIA is big out in the Midwest. We don't have much Division III, NCAA Division III. Instead, we have NAIA. So we've got two conferences, the Heart of America, Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference. And then we have a couple of Division II conferences, the Great Lakes Valley Conference, which sprawls across several states. We have several schools here, the Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and then Division I conferences. We have the Summit, Big 12, and the SEC that our officials are working in consistently out here. So lots of opportunities for referees to start at, we work with officials starting at the youth stuff, doing the U10 at a really substantial, obviously that's on the U.S. soccer side, really substantial youth league here in Kansas City, and try to create by organizing and unifying across the USSF side, the NFHS side with our high school and college to create a pathway for our officials to move. And so we've been working closely with our state director of assessment, state director of instruction to connect with our officials that are working in various capacities and help them set them on a path to succeed and do everything we can through mentorship opportunities and connections to really help them succeed and develop. So we're eager to help officials wade into that pool of college officiating. We know, as has been highlighted really well in the last 2 weeks, officiating at the collegiate game, this is year 5 for me coming up in the fall. It's a totally different animal. And so we really want to help officials to grow and to develop in that. And so we do our best to create mentorship opportunities and to really create, and this is where the social piece for us has been significant, but really create some opportunities to build some meaningful relationships with our officials that work outside of even the game, so that they feel like, hey, I've got 2 or 3 people I can call after the game. I can have a conversation. I can talk through this. And so it's a really great opportunity. But Rich has got our website up there. We've got some ways that you can contact us if you're in the area. We'd love to help get officials. Sometimes the answer, right, isn't, we're not gonna be able to get you on the Big 12 list this fall if you've never done you never refereed college soccer before. We want to help all of our officials to succeed as best they can and to end up on the right path for them to be successful in this craft. So yeah, I think that's what I've got as far as KCISO is concerned. We are thrilled with the opportunity to partner and hear what's going on in other parts of the country. Rich, you and I had a great phone call earlier today, just talking through some of the ways that you guys are doing training and development and recruiting. There's going to be things that obviously, like you've said, that are going to work in other areas and won't work in certain areas. So I think that's the beauty of, let's share the ideas and contextualize this as best we can to ensure that our officials are being properly trained and educated and they're being retained and more officials are being recruited. We all love the game, and we hope that we can provide the best we can to keep our student athletes safe and keep games fair.
Yeah, that's good. Now, if you had, let's say, 1 minute to encourage somebody to join your chapter, what would you tell them? You got that minute?
I got a minute. Okay. You've published our website. There's a contact us form. You can go through there, or you can reach us directly at kcisoa@gmail.com. We encourage you to reach out, and we will contact. We'll be in connection with you and help you walk through the steps and figure out how we can do that for you. And so we've kind of go through the defining of what that's going to take to get a person into the collegiate game. We know NYSOA's nationals qualifications, and so we're working to figure out how to best bring someone into the collegiate game. But the best thing to do is just to send us an email, or you can complete the contact us form on our website. And one of our board members, it'll probably be me, that'll reach out and connect with you and hear a little bit more about you and try to build that relationship so that we know who you are, what your goals are, and what we can do to help you achieve them.
That's great. And so everybody knows, Kansas City is in Missouri.
Yeah, half of it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you belong to the Missouri side or the Kansas side?
I'm on the Kansas side. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm down in the burbs in the Kansas side.
I know I was there last year, but you know, I'm dumb. I forgot. I got lost.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
I got drunk on my way down when I drove through Kentucky. So great, thank you. And we're gonna post your information on our website, and Gordy will be in touch about our exchange program between referees, sending you some referees there and you send us some referees here. That's something that we're gonna be talking about next week's webinar. That's something that we've been doing. We would like to share with other chapters. Maybe they'd be willing to do something like that as well. And maybe NYSOA, now that NYSOA is listening, maybe they'll like the idea. So thank you again for stopping by.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate it.
We'll be in touch, and don't go anywhere.
I won't.
All right, so that was Gordy from Kansas City, ISOA, Vice President. Is, you know, one thing about what we've been doing for the past 3 years as a chapter is actually building bridges with other chapters, not just locally, but across the nation, because we believe that nowadays the game of the college game, it became a nationwide platform where you have this national coordinators, assigners, assigning all over either the Northeast or the whole East Coast or the Midwest or the West Coast. And now these conferences, they're actually paying big bucks to have good referees to referee their games. And you'll see more often now referees from York flying to the South and the West, and referees from the West Coast and the South and Chicago area coming down here, and which makes sense in a way. So, and the more we work together, I think we're going to benefit. There's going to be a greater benefit for all the chapters, including especially when they have this great referees. They haven't been seen by too many people, and they're actually good referees, and they deserve an opportunity. And being that said, speaking of scouting referees, that's pretty much Mark's main job. So here's Mark Cahan, NYSOA Foundation Fund Chair, NYSOA Director of Video Instruction, NCAA Video Instruction Coordinator, and his main job, CONCACAF Manager of Refereeing. Mark, are you with us?
Yeah, hi Richard, thank you for having me.
Great, thank you for stopping by. I know you're here to talk about the foundation and what the foundation is all about, and the opportunities for the chapters and the referees. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, a minute or so, if you can tell us a little bit of your background and what do you do for CONCACAF and all the good things you do at the international level that you bring back to NYSOA.
Oh wow, that's I'm humbled to be here. I appreciate it, and first of all, for all those that are listening, I really hope that all is going well during this time with you and your family and your health and well-being. I know emotionally and physically we're all drained, and we're doing the best that we can. So that first things first. And secondly, thank you, Richard and RWISOA, for everything you guys are doing right now. This is an incredible initiative, and really appreciate that. And basically, a little bit of my background is I was an assistant referee in Major League Soccer for 50 regular season games over my 5.5 years or so there, and I really enjoyed my time working with great people and made great friends and great experiences. And I'm really here to talk about the foundation fund. So let's not talk too much about me and who I am, but I appreciate you really giving me time to talk about the state of affairs in football today and what we all do. So thank you to RWISOA. I think you guys are doing some great things. And the most important thing is, as the chairman of the foundation fund for NYSOA, we're a separate entity from NYSOA. We are a nonprofit, 501c3 non-for-profit, and foundation fund is something that, we have to thank Dr. Ray Burnaby, may he rest in peace, for his vision to create this fund and have some sort of ability to provide support to intercollegiate soccer officiating. And it's just a great opportunity to be here and talk a little bit more about the foundation fund, Richard. So thank you.
No, thank you for giving us a chance to learn a little bit more of this foundation and what you guys do, and how can we have access to some of those resources.
Yeah, so when you go to NYSOA's website, there's at the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down in little print, it says support NYSOA. And when you click on that, it'll bring you up to the Foundation Fund website. And there you can see the board members and, our different roles on the Foundation Fund board. And there's an uplink for where you're able to download the form for the intent to apply application. So if you click on support NYSOA there at the bottom, and you'll see just a little bit of information of who we are. We're appointed by the NYSOA president. So I was honored when our former president, John Puglisi, who's done a lot and is up from your area, he's done a lot for NYSOA, and I appreciate the appointment from him. And then my colleagues on the board for the Foundation Fund, when we voted, they said I talked the most, so I got the opportunity to be the chair. So that was great. But this is my appeal. This is my appeal to the group. I'm here because of the work that we're doing and our mission and our vision. Really, like I say, is to assist in intercollegiate soccer officiating around the country at every level possible. And what we're here as the Foundation Fund is to really support all the educational initiatives, whether it be development or identification and development events. We've supported some wonderful events over the past 2 years here. We support recruitment and retention. And we're looking to do as much as we can. Historically, over the years, in the early 2000s, you would see on an annual giving basis in terms of foundation fund support, usually, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 here and there on an annual basis, giving to the Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania camp. That was basically the primary focus of what the Foundation Fund supported, was E-Town camp for so many years. And I was a student in E-Town camp for 3 years and had the opportunity to meet Dr. Ray Burnaby, and he was instrumental in helping to fight my local chapter to get me into my chapter as a member, because they wouldn't allow me in. And NYSOA is an organization that encourages open and free membership to those that meet the requirements. So Dr. Ray picked up the phone and called my local chapter president and kind of bullied them into saying, why is this kid here for the 3rd year in a row? And I really loved E-Town camp. It was great. But you know, that same amount of money now over the years, we've been able to give some more over the last couple of years. And in my tenure as the chair, we've given more than, you know, double those amounts from previous years, and supported great development and ID events, one in Florida, one practical training event in New York. We've given to the Terry Vaughn Referee Academy to support. Unfortunately, they just canceled their event this year, but you know, we've previously funded a lot of different initiatives from multiple chapters around the country, and you know, we're here, we have money, and that's why we support NYSOA at this moment with the stimulus that's going on. And RWISOA, I'm happy to, as the chair, announce that you've been supported with your webinar series that everyone's listening to now, with support from the Foundation Fund. So, you know, a lot of a great majority of the money in the Foundation Fund is invested in funds in different accounts with the financial advisor in a firm that really is helping to manage the money. And we're looking for, we have a greater need to look for more resources, to get more sponsors and more support, so that we can start to fund more of these opportunities. And you know, one thing that I'd like to mention is that, you know, like Gordy said, Gordy Wetmore, you know, you are special, Gordy. I have to tell you that you're special in my eyes. You're very dedicated to things, and you're always sending clips for feedback and things like that. And I really enjoy that about you. You're hungry to get more educational material at all times. But you know, you alluded to this wonderful thing with women's refereeing and this initiative, and we in the Foundation Fund would really love to support, you know, as much as we can here with new initiatives like funding support with a women's program. So, you know, go ahead.
No, that's great news for the ladies, because I think nationwide we do need some sort of women's female support, female nationwide program. So that's I'm glad that we can all see the needs, and we are willing to do something. So let's go back, just let's rewind a little bit, because that will be at the national level. That will be something big. But how about other chapters? Let's say Kansas, for just an example, because Gordy's here. How about if he has a clinic and he needs to bring in an instructor, or he needs a place or anything like that? Does that qualify for a grant from the foundation? Can you be more specific on what is it that a local chapter can request money for?
So yeah, you know, anything to deal with development, identification, recruitment, and retention of soccer officials, right? Does that mean that you can order lunch for 80 participants? Not necessarily going to be approved in your intent to apply application, right? So, you know, there are certain things that the Foundation Executive Board would decide on. In a sense, for example, anything that you receive funding for, you definitely, you know, should give support to the Foundation Fund and give the, you know, thanks to what the Foundation Fund is supporting. You also provide, after any funding is given, what you need to do is provide a report back to the Foundation Fund on all the activities that were conducted. So, you know, we've supported things like the summit. We've supported local chapters having practical field training events where we bring an instructor. NYSOA would appoint an instructor for you, and basically the monies that would be granted in the request could support, you know, maybe it's a flight to bring that instructor in, the hotel costs, those types of fees that would support maybe the auditorium that you're going to use for your, you know, your training session. You know, like RWISOA hosting this webinar, what a great opportunity and initiative to have the support from the Foundation Fund financially to support this initiative and endeavor. And So there's many different things. Like I mentioned, the Terry Von Referee Academy. You know, they're not only providing support only to intercollegiate soccer officials, but also USSF and stuff like this. But you know, the main objective obviously is to assist in the promotion of high-level intercollegiate soccer officiating, as the foundation fund, you know, really supporting your activities. Does that answer your question?
Oh no, definitely. Gordy, in your case, for instance, do you have any question, and what is it that you can use the funds for, or anything like that? Any questions for Mark?
No, it's good information. Rich and I talked a little bit about this on the phone call that we had earlier, but that's good information for us. We're definitely interested in continuing to grow efforts to train and develop our officials here in Kansas City. And the fact that NYSOA is able to put some money towards that is really, really beneficial. We don't have unlimited funds by any means, and so we try to kind of triage and decide what's the best way to spend the money that we have. And at the end of the day, there's ideas that we have that unfortunately kind of go unrealized, in large part due to financial constraints. So this kind of thing, at least for our chapter, and I would assume for many chapters across the country, is an outstanding resource and needs to be. And I'm so glad that it's being brought to light, because there's a lot that can be done with a little bit more money. So good stuff. Thanks, Mark, and I appreciate your kind words.
Yeah, Mark, just a quick thing. Let's say I'm the president or a board member of a chapter in somewhere, Alabama, and I want to contact you, or I want to contact the foundation. Should they contact you directly? Should they contact someone else? Because we're on the website now and there is no contact info. Is there any specific information that you would like to share with everybody?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, if you look right where it says donations to the fund could be made in memory of others, if you have any questions about the fund or making a donation, please email NYSOA Foundation Fund at gmail.com. Just above where donations could be sent. Remember, we're a 501c3 not-for-profit, and any donations that are made to the foundation fund are tax deductible. You know, we do a lot of work to give money out to chapters, and you know, we really are looking for opportunities in any way, shape, or form to do more with the foundation fund. And I'm looking, you know, to kind of find some subcommittees and appoint some people to assist in some projects that we have. We're working really hard and hopeful that, you know, in the upcoming new year, the new president that comes in will appoint new people as well. And with the, you know, the change of people in the committee, maybe new ideas come in, and, you know, more opportunities start to take place. And, you know, we've had some great ideas, and we'd love to see some of these ideas really come into fruition. It's as in everything we do in life, you know, it's difficult to really accomplish a lot of these measures, and we, you know, have some great objectives to meet. And you know, really, if anyone out there, you know, has ideas, has needs, has wants, desires in terms of helping with intercollegiate soccer officials, you know, reach out to me at the foundation fund email address that we just gave at gmail.com, NYSOA Foundation Fund at gmail.com. And, you know, whatever I can do, before you want to fill out an application and apply for something, please reach out to me first, ask questions. You know, I'm here to guide you through the process, to help you, and, you know, make sure that it's the best case going forward, so that your support requests, your intent to apply request is granted.
All right, so great. So you can use that same email for any communication to the foundation fund to request funding, and also to for donations. That's great. So real quick, we're gonna go back to the NYSOA website and show the steps so everybody can see it, how you can get here. Maybe in the future maybe NYSOA can put a little link somewhere in the main page, so we don't have to make so many steps. But who am I to criticize? I'm not criticizing. I just being a pain in the butt like I am. So basically, we go to .com, and then we go all the way to the bottom, and we click on the bottom here, support RWISOA. And once we click on that, it will bring us to the information about the foundation and all the goodies there. Did I do it right?
Great job. Yeah, in the future, you know, we give a lot of credit to NYSOA because NYSOA does a lot to help with the foundation fund and getting exposure. But the foundation fund, as I mentioned before, is a separate entity to NYSOA. We're completely separate in terms of organizations and tax status. So yeah, you know, we're here as a main subsidiary to support NYSOA in terms of, you know, like I said, we support the NYSOA Summit last year. Lance Van Heidsma, you know, did a fantastic job with putting together that summit, bringing together a lot of really high level guest speakers, one which you're going to hear next, Tori Penso, and, you know, Ryan Sigich was also there at the summit, Dr. Joe Matchnick, who you heard from last week here on this webinar. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in the future, and, you know, with great initiatives like this and really great people like yourselves, you know, NYSOA itself and the Foundation Fund as well will both take off to continue to be, you know, your premier educational source for all of soccer officiating in the United States. We really, you know, as the director of video instruction for NYSOA, we really have put a lot of time and effort into creating making of a NYSOA referee. Lance Van Heidsma has come up with great ideas, and, you know, in collaboration with him, we've done great with, you know, the weekly video education and, you know, now with the video quiz stimulus being supported by the Foundation Fund, NYSOA is really taking off to be one of the best worldwide.
Great, and we really, really appreciate it. As I know we've been talking offline, and we really appreciate it. NYSOA is heading to the right direction. Let's put it that way. Any final words, Mark?
Yeah, I want to, you know, I've been friends with Lance Van Heidsma for over 15 years, so I apologize for mispronouncing his name, saying Van Heidsma, but, you know, it's just easier to say it that way. So Lance Van Heidsma, you know, has put NYSOA into great hands with your new managing director, Tori Penso, and, you know, I worked with Tori's husband, Chris Penso, for many years, and, you know, they're doing great things and they have great ideas, and I think that, you know, everyone who joins these calls should be proud to be part of this organization because, you know, NYSOA really is doing everything they can to, like I said, be your premier educational source around the world. Really, they're doing such a fantastic job. So kudos to Lance Van Heidsma and Tori Penso and your current president, Gary Huber, who is also on the Foundation Fund, who gives so much to them, and Dr. Todd Abraham as well, Director of Education, who instruction does a fantastic job, giving so much support to them as well. So congratulations on what you're doing. The Foundation Fund is proud to support this initiative. So congratulations to RWISOA, and hope to continue to see every Friday hundreds and hundreds of people and this webinar grow. So excellence.
We really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for NYSOA support. Thank you for the foundation. And imagine if Lance would be listening to us, what would he say? Who knows what he would say? But he's not listening, so don't worry about it. Mark, let's see if anybody has a question. 1, 2, 3. Any questions for Mark? No questions for Mark? I don't see any questions for Mark. So Mark, thank you, and I hope you can stay a little while longer because we have a great presentation by Tori. So thank you again for stopping by and providing some information about this wonderful foundation and the good things that you guys been doing. Appreciate that.
You got it. Fantastic. Thank you, Richard.
All right. So that was Mark Cahan from the NYSOA Foundation Fund Chair, also the Director of Video Instruction for NYSOA and the NCAA. And obviously he was humble enough not to talk about CONCACAF. I tried to push him to say a couple of things, but he's too humble. But don't worry about it. We'll get him in a couple of weeks because he's going to be giving us a beautiful international level clinic on handling handball. Which one is it, to be or not to be? So we'll have him in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to push the buttons there about CONCACAF and stuff like that. So great to have you, Mark. Thank you. And thank you, Gordy, as well. Please stay. Don't go anywhere, because coming up we have a beautiful presentation by Tori Penso. Tori, are you with us?
Absolutely, I'm right here.
How are you?
Fabulous. How are you doing?
Can't complain. Do you want to talk a little bit about the this week's winners for the
Yes.
video thingy? Sure.
Yes. So that's a great segue, because the program, the NYSOA Educational Stimulus Program, is funded rather by the Foundation Fund. So we are lucky to have their support monetarily, so that we're able to offer some type of support to our officials, as we recognize we're all in the same boat as everyone here. A large of us are largely officials, and we don't maybe have a second job, or it's a small job, and not doing any games has taken a financial impact on majority of our membership. So we're happy to be able to provide the stimulus package that we were able to get quickly approved. So thanks to Mark and his team for that. And since we have just concluded week 2 of the stimulus program, which has 10 quiz questions that Mark has brought his international CONCACAF level brain to, as well as Lance Van Heidsma. And we're thrilled to have the two of them behind the technical aspects of the clips. So you have 8 weeks of the quiz. They have 10 questions. You complete it, and then anyone who gets 100% is then put into a drawing, and we select 10 winners, and they range in prizes from $250 to $100. And thus far, we have awarded $2,500 so far to our members, so we're thrilled for that, and we're excited to continue this on week over week. So if you're not aware of the program, every member for NYSOA should receive an email that has the link and details included, and you can click on that link and access the quiz and take it. And then on Fridays at 3 p.m. we go on YouTube live, so you can join us live. You never know what might happen in a live webinar or webcast. Sometimes the kids join in, sometimes Chris joins in, but we release the winners. And so we selected our 10 for week 2, and then we also go over the 2 most missed questions and just kind of cover off on what was expected there and the reasons behind it. And then the full analysis comes out the following Monday, so that you can, if you did miss any questions, go back and evaluate that. So it's not just about stimulus and getting money in your pocket for a chance to win, but it's also about learning and how can we all get on the same page and have more consistency across big decisions, like this week was DOGSO and SPA. The week previous was challenges. So that is a bit about the stimulus quiz.
How can you go wrong? I mean, you learning, and you're getting paid to learn. I mean, how can you go wrong?
You can't, Richard. So we had 700 members participate this past week, which was phenomenal. We're hoping to get, just over 1,000. So if you guys did participate, thank you so much. Please share it with other members. We're all getting better. It's all about us learning. Hopefully everybody has a little bit of downtime, can take advantage of it. It really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes. So it closes every Wednesday. You have Monday to Wednesday to complete it.
Great. And today, today was a great show. You had Mr. Penso and the kids there. It was really fun.
Yeah, we had the drum roll. I'm not sure if the drum roll came over live. I think it may have skipped right during the moment of their truth. But we beamed into the kitchen and had the kids join in. Chris was our celebrity appearance, and then I'm sure next week we'll have some fun as well. So we might go out by the pool, or who knows what we might do next. So trying to keep it interesting because we've got 8 weeks of it, but it is live, so you never know what could happen.
You never know. You don't. Yeah, I don't want to put you in the spot, but do you happen to have the names of the winners? Would you like to call those names?
I do. Put me on the spot. Let me pull it up.
Hey, we referees, you know.
I'm always ready. I'm ready for the unexpected. Let's see. So our winners for week 2, you're only asking because we had 2 New Jersey officials. Is that why?
I was expecting to have more, but that's okay.
Well, you did have more in the Hall of Champions, which we'll promote because there was 98 officials who got 100%. We did have a couple FIFA referees in that, Danielle Chesky as well as Ted Uncle completed, which was phenomenal. So we had that. But we did have our 10 winners, so I'll announce those. So Michael McBride from New Jersey, and that we accidentally had a mistake on that. We had him in North Carolina on the quiz, so we updated that, but he's definitely from your state, New Jersey. We had Brian Lynch from Illinois, Caleb Perry from West Virginia, Eric Tattersall from Ohio, Fernando Rodriguez from New Jersey, Pedro Mantana from New Jersey, Mark Roaming from Texas, Shane Cowger from whatever MO is. Is that Montana? And then Garkon from North Carolina and Anook Singh from New York. So we had 10 winners, and we will continue to do this for the next 6 weeks. So if you haven't participated, please do.
Like I said, you can't go wrong. Guys,
yeah,
ladies,
right.
You can't go wrong. You learning, you getting paid, come on.
Right. Fantastic. Well, if you are ready, I'm ready. Let's get into this.
Yeah, let's go right into it. Why not? It's a great topic, and we have a lot of ladies. I'm gonna be giving the mic to some of the ladies they don't even know. Just gonna hit them, out of the blue. You know how it is. We're referees, and we get hit with things, and we need to, act the part. So, ladies, be ready. Guys, be ready because doing the presentation, we may just pause it and give somebody the mic to ask a question or just to make a comment. So let's pay attention. And Tori, I'm going to give you the power. The power is going to be all yours.
All right.
And the power is all yours.
All right. You can see my screen?
Yep, full screen, beautiful.
Fantastic. So we are talking.
Before you start, let me interrupt you one more time. Sorry about that.
No
ladies
problem.
and gentlemen, we currently have 165 people logged in. We have a little over 300 that register, so we're gonna go up in numbers. Definitely, we cannot go through the questions live on the chat because it's moving too fast. So please send us your questions via email to webinars@rwisoa.org. That's WEBI. What am I saying? Webinars. I know how to spell webinars. I need to write it down. Okay.
WEBINAR.
RS@rwsoa.org. All right. Or you can send it to rwsoa@gmail.com. Send us your questions via email, and then we'll plug you right in. Sorry to interrupt you, Tari. It's all yours.
No problem. Interrupt as always. So I love that we can have some dialogue because this is my first time presenting Silo on this. Usually I am with a group and it's a hearty discussion. So maybe we can pause and get the group to have a bit of discussion. So today we are discussing gender variations in officiating. So I figured we can start with some statistical background to get a sense of why is this content important for us to know. So if we look at the programs by numbers from men's to women's programs at the Division I level, you have 64% more women's programs than you do men. At the D2 level, 24% more, and the D3 level, 5% more. And this has grown since last year as well. So what's the end here is that you are highly more likely to officiate a women's game than you are a men's game. And so it's really important for us to understand the differences in the game and how can we adapt and adjust and be aware of those differences. So that is largely why we're discussing. And not only is it different across divisions from the men's to women's perspective, but it's also geographically imbalanced, if you would. So here are some examples of some states that have significantly more women's programs to men's programs. That includes Alabama, Texas, Ohio, Indiana, and Tennessee. And if your state is not listed here, it doesn't mean that there's not more. It's just probably not a significant difference as these states have shown here. So not only is there a difference between the men's and women's programs across divisions, but also geographically. So it's important to say you're more likely to do a women's game than you are men's in college, and it's important for us to understand those differences. So what comes to mind when I ask what are the differences in men's and women's games? So it might be something like this compared to something like this. This might be familiar for you all. So let's go through and identify the differences. So I'm going to show you a bit of an eye chart, but we're going to walk through each element. And hopefully this gives you a little bit of a framework to better understand what those differences are. So first and foremost, style of play. So the men's game tends to be a faster speed. We have harder challenges as a result of that speed. And there's less predictability due to the speed and quick turnovers that occur in the men's game. On the flip side, on the ladies' side, you have more finesse and greater predictability, potentially, due to the slower nature of the game. And again, these are going to be all generalizations. So there might be obviously some outliers in your experiences, but generally speaking, these should hold true in your experiences. So there's also some differences in their body types. So if you were to set a male against a female and look at their body differences, we're structurally designed differently, and that has some impact. So on the male side, they have a stronger upper body. Their higher center of gravity, it usually resides in their top arms. You can't see me, but I'm touching my arms here. And then on the women's game, we have a stronger lower body. We have a lower center of gravity, usually in our hips. And that results in different types of fouls. So on the male side, you have more shoulder or upper body challenges. Some of those checks you've probably seen where someone goes flying off the deep end, that's very typical in the men's game. Whereas on the women's game, you're going to see more of those hip checks. So you've got to be expecting and anticipating those different types of challenges. On the men's side, you have more tackles at higher speed, and on the women's side, you have less tackles with that pace. And then the number of fouls is significant. So on the men's side, on average, we have more fouls committed per game, and on the women's side, we have less. And that could mean that potentially on the women's side, every foul means a little bit more because we have less of them. So maybe if you hadn't thought about that, that's one way to think of it. It's not just that you have less of them, but maybe they come out of nowhere for you. And you might be surprised, which we don't want to be as officials. But you likely have less fouls in a women's game, which means they have greater impact. Every decision you make has a greater impact on that match. You'll have less in the attacking third, maybe one, maybe two max. And so it's really critical we get those right. And then also there's other psychological differences. So on the men's side, more instantaneous reactions, more group kind of mass mobbing confrontations, and also a greater likelihood of simulation or embellishment. Whereas on the women's side, we tend to have less reactions or dissent, not always, but likely less reactions. More carryovers from previous matches, and this usually gets a good reaction from the crowd. You've probably been to that match where out of nowhere you just have a violent behavior real quick early in the match, and it came out of nowhere for you. Oftentimes, us females, we like to never forget. And I remember personally as a player, going into a match and playing a team and reminding my teammates just before on the bus ride there, hey, do you remember so-and-so number X? She did this last game, last season. Let's make sure we get her in the first 10, right? These are conversations that really happen in the locker room on the female side. And we don't forget these things, and they carry over years, months, weeks. And so what happens is you end up having this unpredictable violent conduct or violent behavior. Yes.
I was actually in a game where a D1 game, I'm not going to say which one it was, this was many years ago, where the winning team 6-0 with 10 minutes left. One of the players actually committed a violent conduct, violent behavior, a foul for no reason, and it did not make any sense. And both captains got together, and they won that. The team that committed the foul, that captain tells the other one, "Are we done now?" And I was like, what is this about? And then after the game, they told me that was something that was done the prior season.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Now, would you agree that Descent and the women's games is pretty much the same? It's coming to you, it's given to you just like in the men's game, but it's done differently. While in the men's game is public and openly, and a women's game is more like private and indirectly.
Yep, absolutely. We're far more sly about it. And we'll talk a little bit about that public aspects. On the women's side, we tend not to like the public, whether it be acknowledgement or disagreement with you. We'd rather do it in a subtle way. So yes, there's definitely, it's different in that regard. And I would say, you know, a lot of times when we look at clips where it's clearly a red card or a yellow card not given in a female's match, the referee oftentimes says, well, the players didn't react. The player didn't react. Her players didn't react. Expect that in the women's game. They don't react. And just because they don't react doesn't mean that it's not a straight red card. So we can't lend players' reactions to help us make that decision. While it's a piece of information, it certainly shouldn't be all of the puzzle. But yeah, feel free to jump in, Richard, anytime. But yeah, more calculated reactions like you just shared. You know, these things happen. On the men's side, you know, you push me, I push you right back. Is typically how it happens, right? You foul me, and I instantly foul you right back. On the women's game, it could be moments later. It could be the next half. It could be the next game. It could be the next season. So there's much more carryovers. And on the female side, far less likely to stimulate or embellish. I like to say we're just stronger, but hey, is what it is, right? So these are the differences. Generally speaking, again, generalizations here, but hopefully this helps you, give you a little framework to work within. However, while we've talked about the differences, it is important to acknowledge some things do remain the same. So player safety is paramount in the collegiate game. So we always need to make sure that we are defaulting to whatever is important for player safety. Capacity for high emotions. This is a passionate game. So whether you're doing a men's or women's game, you will have high emotions. Expect that. Especially in the collegiate game, because we have unlimited subs. So you've got players coming in constantly, not unlimited, but practically, right? So you have a lot more of intensity sometimes in the collegiate game. Whereas in the professional games or in USSF, it's a little more settled, it seems. Does somebody have something to say?
That wasn't me. I don't know. Someone out there? Go ahead.
Keep going. So also, you have high stakes, right? So you've probably heard coaches' livelihood are on the line, right? Many coaches are paid 6 figures and upwards at this juncture in the collegiate game. And it's important for us to understand that our decisions at the end of the day have a lasting impact. And it's important that we take them very serious. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And there's opportunity for highly skilled players on both sides of the aisle, right? You do have a greater likelihood of having more international players on the women's side, largely because at the male side, they would continue on into the professional ranks a little sooner, whereas on the women's side, they come over and they play collegiate. So it wouldn't be a surprise if you're doing a D3 game to have someone on the roster who's played in the World Cup recently. I had that happen to me actually just recently. So no surprise there, there are a lot of highly skilled players, both on the men's and the women's side. And tactics and strategies, generally speaking, remain the same. So it is the same game. There are some differences, but it is important to acknowledge the similarities. So the last time, and they both deserve the same respect, which is important to note. So we've got some advice. The last time I did this presentation, I was lucky enough to do it with Lance Van Heidsma at the summit. And he had a great quote when we were talking about advice for officials. And I wanted to capture it and bring it here because it was a thought-provoking item, I think, for a lot of officials. But he had said when he plans for a women's match, his preparation is more extensive when compared to that of a men's match. Let that sink in for a second. He has to prepare even more than when he goes on to a women's match than he does a men's. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. It can come down to focus. It can come down to the pace is a little bit different. So you've got to be focused in because those decisions come quick and you maybe had nothing going on for 20 minutes and then all of a sudden you've got a big decision to make. So there's a lot more focus there. There's a lot more underlining, like you had mentioned, the dissent isn't so vocal, right? It's small, it's subtle. There's these small, subtle things and signs that happen, and you have to be really aware to those small and subtle signs. And we'll see some clips of that. But I thought that was a really powerful quote. And if you don't know Lance, Lance has officiated the Women's College Cup championship match now multiple times. So he's definitely a high-level official, and he's now working at CONCACAF as the manager of referees there. So
Yeah,
definitely very cool.
and also physically, you need to prepare yourself differently in a women's game, especially because the way in a women's game, the way the field is used is completely different. Well, they actually they need more space to do their passing. There's more passing. They need more space. So we actually need to we'll do more running in a women's game, believe it or not.
Yes, I'm trying to get some more facts and stats to back that up. So hopefully in future I can snag some more to support that. But yes. So some advice for men officiating women's matches. So first and foremost, like Lance has said, be prepared. Do your homework. The last matchup, frustrations that may exist, what fouls were called, what cards were given, what cards perhaps weren't given. Are there international players on that roster? Be aware of those. There'll be target players undoubtedly. And then next, communication tactics should certainly vary when you're doing a women's match. So here are some guidelines to help you with that. So female players have a tendency not to want to talk to officials. Don't take it personal, it's not. It's just the nature of who we are. Recognize this difference and use your spoken word selectively. And not to say that you shouldn't use it. So it's important that we just know when and how to use it. A quiet word goes a lot further in a women's match. Not to say that it doesn't in a men's match, right? I think that's still a tool there as well. But ultimately, a quiet word, you will keep that player more engaged and open that dialogue. If you go to more visual, broad, sweeping discussions, you may lose that player. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So making sure we're being professional and focused on the athlete. I know this might sound crazy, but I've heard it personally. So remove any uses of sweetie or hun or girls. I know some of you might be cringing in your seats right now when you hear that or see that, but ultimately I've heard that. And there might be fathers out there that are officials that think that they're just being, maybe it's helpful in some way, or they're trying to relate. But at the end of the day, these are athletes and they're on that collegiate field to win, and they want to be treated as athletes. And they find that very demeaning when you use these types of terms. So just eliminate it from your language. You don't need it. You don't say it on the men's side. Just eliminate it. So whatever it is you were going to say, over here, sweetie, it would just be over here. Just drop the sweetie. It doesn't need to be said. Also, like we had said, the big verbose, large public acknowledgement, females don't respond well to it. Not to say don't do it, just use it sparingly. Know that if you use it, you may lose that individual player. If you're trying to send a message to everybody, great. I'm not saying don't use it. Just make sure you're not using it more than once or twice in a match. Females don't respond well to it. So just keep that in mind. And there are some females, just like any player, just like you're managing, 22 individual personalities on the field. Some players may respond well to it, but generally speaking, it doesn't work well. Your whistle and your cards are going to be your most effective tool. They want to have fouls called against them, and they want to be consistent with what you're calling on the men's side as well. So some more positioning, and you had alluded to this, Richard. Given the pace of the game, you may be able to get more wider during dynamic play because the play has a little bit more finesse and a little more flow typically. And often players expect to see you working hard. Players recognize it when you're not there or when you're walking too often, and players take personal offense to it. I've seen it happen. So making sure that anytime you have a match, you're working hard no matter what level it is or gender. It's important. The players know it and they feel it. Restart position is also something to acknowledge would be different. In a men's game where punts, goal kicks, free kicks are largely going to travel a greater distance. So your restart position should take a little difference there. And then really important to note, misconduct should not be treated differently in the women's game. I repeat, should not be treated differently. We still see inconsistencies for whatever reason. Women often don't react as one would expect, as we had already discussed. So don't use that as an excuse for not administering the correct misconduct, whether that be a red card or yellow card. It's really important that we maintain consistency in the game there. And given the pace of the game and the lack of those high intensity challenges, it requires even more work to maintain the focus necessary. And oftentimes, like we said, that violent behavior or red card comes out of nowhere. So prepare yourself and maintain focus so you're not surprised. With less fouls throughout the game, each foul has even more meaning. And it's critical that we get these right. And we'll show some examples of not being surprised. Richard, did you have anything to add before we keep moving?
I have a question from a
Yeah.
lady, but I think you're gonna cover this. But you know what? Just to keep it interactive, let me find her. She's got a good question.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Katie. I know you're here, Katie. This is so difficult. I got to learn how to do this. When you have a couple of hundred, close to a couple of hundred referees, and it keeps moving up and down, it's difficult to actually locate one person.
No
Okay.
problem.
So here's Katie. Let's see. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
Great. You have a question for Tori, so go right ahead.
I do. Hi, Tori. Thank you for your time tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my question. I just want to know, does your pregame change going back and forth from women's to men's games? I guess whether you have men or women on your crew doesn't really matter, but I'm just saying, like, for the actual games, does it differ?
Typically not. There might be a couple things that I might highlight or adjust, but generally speaking, it would be the same.
Gotcha.
And my pregame is very specific to the game I'm doing. I'm also typically doing just one game a week, right? So I can dive a little
Yeah.
deeper into the tactics and strategies of that team. So we spend more time on that kind of stuff. I do, and as sad as this might be, I'll admit to it, but I do on a men's game just remind my crew, because typically I'm working with all males, that you have a female on the crew, and it's
Yep.
important to be aware of things that
Exactly.
might be said. I do bring that up, not in a negative way, but I bring it up so that we're all prepared.
Exactly.
So when they do hear something, they're not surprised, and they know what I'm expecting from them, which is to communicate that directly with me. So I do bring that into the fold just to make sure we're all on the same page, just so I don't want them to forget, which happens because once we get out there, you're another referee, which is great,
Yep.
until somebody says something that isn't appropriate, right? Which we need to deal with. So, but other than that, no, it's a great question. But typically, no, I wouldn't. Is there anything that you think of specifically?
Not really. I think it was kind of a double-sided question because I do both men's and women's games up in the Northeast, and so to be honest, my pregame doesn't change a whole lot either. And so when you were kind of going through the differences in the games and whatnot, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, should I be saying like things differently? But yeah, the fact that you said, I mean, they're pretty much the same game. It's soccer. I mean, whether there's guys on the field or there's girls on the field, you still have to put the ball in the back of the net to win the game. So yeah, so I think it was just kind of making sure I'm doing the right thing, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you might highlight, the women don't react, right? So I do say that when I go into like an NWSL game or women's
Yeah.
college game, like I might just remind the crew that, right? That we
Yeah.
need to make sure we're focusing on the point of contact and we're getting all the right things right with a decision of a misconduct, of a challenge, irregardless of how players react, right? So we should all expect them not to react. So I might remind them of that too. But outside of that, not really. If there's a player who stimulates, more often than not, that would be a tactical thing I would bring up. And obviously that would happen more likely in the men's game, right? But yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. Got me thinking.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Katie,
for sure.
where are you from?
I am from Boston.
Boston, Massachusetts. Great.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Great time to throw this information for everybody. We currently have people like them from 36 states and 39 different chapters.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So
But
thank you.
I actually am calling in from Wisconsin. So if that helps your numbers at all. Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you, Katie. And please, any other questions, feel free to email, and everybody else. Sorry, Tori, go right ahead.
No, apologies. Keep the questions coming. I love it. I'm not used to speaking this much by myself. So please, anybody else, if you have questions as we go, please do. Thanks, Katie, for that. So I do have a handful of clips that we'll talk through. I don't want to get too caught up on too much of the decisions or what the referee did, but the essence here is really don't be surprised. These things happen in the women's game as well. So let's see. So that was obviously a very tough challenge on the keeper there. The keeper ends up with a broken jaw in that instance, actually. So these challenges do happen in the women's game, and you should expect them. Here's one. Look at the referee's body language. So that is an example of one game with 3 different instances where there are clearly fouls committed and we're just not calling them, right? We see this time and time again, and I'm not sure why this occurs, but it does. These are athletes, and we need to protect them, and we need to call fouls just like we would in a men's game. So that's important. Here's another clip showing some more violent behavior. Ouch. And ARs there, we got to be prepared. We got to be prepared for these types of incidents to happen, because they do. So we need to have our eyes and ears open. And sometimes they're really subtle. And here's an example of that. And we'll show another look here. Ouch, right? And these things certainly do happen. Here is an example, and this is one of my, it's not a favorite clip, that's the wrong thing to say. I think this is one that is frustrating for me, because you can see the interaction of the players evolve over time, and as a referee, we're not necessarily picking it up. So you can see the banter kind of begins right underneath the referee's nose.
I think it's fair to say that in a men's game, a male referee would have dealt with it differently by managing the moment differently. And in women's games, we don't see that too often. Do you have any idea why? Why is that?
Say that again, Richard, sorry.
Like in the same play, the same situation in a men's game, referee by a men's referee, he will deal with it. He will manage the moment. He will actually have a conversation and trying to prevent from moving up to the next level, right? Like he did here. But with women's game, usually seen, especially males referees, not reacting, not preventing. And they kind of like react to what's happening instead of preventing refereeing in females game. Do you know why?
I'm not sure. And I don't know if it's that we're not prepared or not mentally checked in, because you can see the players bantering, right? The interactions there, and typically female players do that often. There's a look, and as soon as you see that look, I interact and I say, hey, knock it off. Let me protect. Let me deal with her. Okay, you play your game. Let me deal with her, right? And you just don't see it as often. When males are officiating, we let those things go, and then they boil up, and then things happen, right? And so we need to be more aware of those soft signals. And this is a great clip that shows that, right? And this punch was actually not caught by the officiating crew. And you can see it kind of happens right in the line of the AR, but he's kind of focused, looking back and forth, and doesn't pick up on it. So we need to pick up on the soft signals that the players are giving us. Even while we're, the referee's running there, it's happening right underneath his nose, right? It's almost like you want to shake the TV screen. You're like, look at him, say something, right? But I think it's a good learning clip for us all to see and say, hey, how much of this banter happens in our games that we don't address? And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to make it public. It can be a simple word in passing. Hey guys, knock it off. I'm right here. I'm watching, right? Or maybe it's something with compassion. What happened? Tell me what happened. Why are you frustrated with her, right? We can ask questions too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And male referees do that in a male's game and a man's game, but they seem to miss the triggers in female games. I don't get it. I do have a question. Someone's asking me, and I don't want to bring him in because I don't want to take too much time on this one. If we get to see this or video reviewed, because we can video review this, will it be red card for violent conduct?
Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
the question is violent conduct or fighting? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah. So this will change, and I'll allow, sounds like you're going to have Ryan on the next round. So whatever I say will be null and voided because the rules are changing as it relates to fighting for next year. So how about I scapegoat that one effectively?
I tell you what, so let me borrow that clip so I can play it next week when Ryan is doing the interpretation.
Absolutely, put him right on the spot. I'm sure he'll give you a straight answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we would definitely expect a red card here. And like we said, be physically prepared, mentally and physically, right? These challenges are tough. Here's a great example of Ian right there on a tough challenge in the semifinal of this year's semifinal at D1. And here's a great example of a referee you might recognize showing us great preparation. Great interaction, right? And that's obviously Lance. That is the final last 2018. But you can see at the end of the first half, everyone's tired. A long ball gets sent, and he's right there, right? So by the time the players look up to make to argue that corner kick, he's right there. Has a great interaction with the player, gets her smiling. And if you know 23 from UNC, she is their captain, and she is their everything on the back. So if he's got her in their pocket, he's got the team in the pocket. So really great interaction here, highlighting an official who's taking this game very seriously. And so then on the flip side, would love to also give some advice for women officiating men, because I think that's important as well. As rare as that might be these days, it sounds like we have a great program in New York focused on women officials, so hopefully we'll see more of them in the game. So given general assumptions that exist, female officials need to work a little bit harder to prove themselves on the onset, to prove that we belong. So here's some tips that I've personally found really helpful. So key aspects of your game that must include are these three. So high caliber fitness. You've got to be physically prepared to keep up. A high degree of professionalism. It's not a time to joke and flirt. There will be times for that, but it's not on the onset. You really need to prove that you belong. And then strong football knowledge, because they'll test you here. Using every available minute from arrival to introductions to the first whistle to your first foul to really establish yourself as credible, regardless of gender. And I think some of these tactics you'll find are probably helpful for everyone, but really emphasizing when women are officiating men's game, because at the end of the day, they're scouting you out and trying to figure out if you really belong, and it's important for us to show up. I always like to use the first 5 minutes of the match to really showcase my fitness. So some of that run that we saw Lance do right there, I like to be a little bit of everywhere in the first 5 minutes, over deliver on proximity to ball and contact early, and you'll establish that credibility, and often a little bit of surprise and delight. I love it when they turn around and you're right there, just like Lance was, right? She's going to debate the decision, and he's right there. There's no debate when he's right there. So it's really important that we do that early in the match. Corner kick, goal kick decisions, foul decisions, they turn around and you're right there. That really establishes credibility and is really important. Appearance is critical. If you look professional and look fit, you'll have a greater chance of earning their respect. Showcase your football knowledge to build credibility early, whether that's the correct application of advantage. Clear, concise explanations and communication with players goes a long way. Use your personality to interact, have fun, communicate early and often. I like to talk quite a bit when I'm on the field, small conversations help us keep everybody in control, and just remind them that we're here and we're always watching. And given the speed of the game, be smart about your fitness. While we want to be strong in the first 5-10 minutes, we also want to be smart later in the game. So use your speed when you need it the most, into the penalty area and the attacking third and during transitions. That's when we need to use that quick speed, that 10-yard, 15-yard burst. And then we want to be composed in the midfield. So we want to make sure that we're reserving our energy and using those sprints when we need it the most. And use your personality, have fun. I think it's important to have females on men's games. I think we bring an interesting dynamic to the equation. So use your personality, communicate, play often, and have fun. So that's the advice for the women officiating men. And at the end of the day, it's the same game. However, different psychological and physiological differences that lead to different styles of play and different foul tendencies. You need to be aware of these differences and adjust your game management techniques in area of focus. And at the end of the day, whatever your goals are, however big they are, know that they always seem impossible until it's done. This past year, this is the crew on the Final Four, and it was the first all-female crew on a Division I women's Final Four. Definitely came all too late, I would say, but whatever those goals are that you want to achieve in officiating, set them big, be hungry, and go after it. So any questions you guys might have, here's my contact information, but definitely floor is open. Ask away.
Yeah, we do have a lot of questions, so I'm going to start bringing some of those questions in right
Great.
now. I'm going to start with Andrew. Has to do with communication. Let's see if we can find Andrew here. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
First name, last name, and what state you're calling from?
Yeah, Andrew Schron from Taisoa. I live in Virginia. My question was, given what we know about just psychology in general, it's pretty clear that females communicate more, they use more words. Like, that's not in question. So it always seems counterintuitive when we say female players don't want to be talked to. So is it, do you think it's, you mentioned this one, reprimanding, do you think it is the publicity of how you do it, or tone, or do you think it's just the role of player and official? What do you think that is?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And we've had this healthy discussion in our household as well. But my personal opinion is, I think when we step on the field as females, it's like a light switch turns on. And we no longer are chatty Cathys anymore. We've got our game faces on. Sure. And we've taken a little bit longer, like we had to prove ourselves to get here. And so we have a little edge on our shoulders, and we don't want to be told what to do or how to do it, right? Like we just want to go out there and win. And we take ourselves very seriously. Like you don't see a lot of people goofing off, right? Yeah. We put on our game face and we're serious, and we don't want to be talked to. We just want to do our job. Yeah, we already know. We know what you're going to tell us. If it's yellow card, just give it to me. I don't want to hear it. And that tends to be the reaction. And I do think there is something about the public acknowledgement piece of it. And I'm no psychologist, right? But I'm sure there's something out there that probably validates that.
Sure. Yeah, great. Thanks
question,
so much.
Andrew. For sure.
Thank you. That was a great question. And we pretty much covered the whole United States.
That's amazing.
And some we do have people actually from England. We have someone from, I don't know what they're doing at this time. Someone from Indonesia. We got people from Costa Rica.
Amazing.
Amazing. It's for the love of the game, right? For the love of the game.
For the love of the game. Yes, it is a universal language, that's for sure.
All right, we have Michael with another question. Let's see if we can find Michael here.
Sure.
Hi, Michael. First name, last name, and where you calling from? Michael Crump. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Indiana.
Indiana, beautiful Indiana. What part of Indiana?
In the central part, near Indianapolis.
Gotcha.
I do most of my games probably in the northern part of the state, but I'm closer to Indianapolis.
Fort Wayne area?
Yes. Yep.
Great town. I love Fort Wayne. You have a question for Tori?
Yeah, so Tori, do you, and this ties a little bit into the previous question, but do you see differences with the men and women with the usage of your, or as us as officials, with our verbal or physical signals? So for example, the advantage signal versus calling advantage, whistle variation, charging, coming in hard to a, you know, if you're coming in fast to a foul spot, or also then maybe if we happen to have a potential conflagration, if, you know, if we're coming in hard versus soft, do you happen to see any differences there?
Yeah, I would say in this instance, not necessarily, right? This is one of those that falls in the, it's pretty much the same across the genders when it relates to the tactics in the game, right? So what is a yellow card is a yellow card, whether it's men or women, right? What is a small foul or a soft foul or trifling foul is no different between the men and the women, right? So it would be the same whistle technique there. And then in regards to running too, I was never a fan of that, and I have since brought that into my equation as I've learned that officiating is really putting on a show for everyone. And so the more stadiums I've had the opportunity to officiate in, the more I've brought kind of that drama, if you will, into the way I officiate. And players actually respond really well to it on both sides, I would say, especially when you're talking about calling fouls just outside the 18. If I run to the spot and make it feel really big, the players, they react positively to that because they recognize that I recognize how important and big and significant this decision is, right, for the game. So I would encourage that, and I think it works on both sides, both the men and women. But great question,
great.
Michael.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michael. Great question. Very good question. And was Michael from Indiana, near Fort Wayne, a lovely city, a lovely place. We have another question. Let's see if we can find the gentleman here or the lady here. Trying to go up and down, trying to make it work. This is like when you're watching a like a TV show on Facebook Live, when you see everybody, you know, talking at the same time and chatting at the same time. Like you can even by the time you finalize reading one comment, I mean you have another 500 comments coming up, and this is pretty much the same thing. So let's see. Is it Isad? Am I pronouncing it right?
It's Assad, really close, Richard.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm so bad.
No, you're good.
Like I told Jonathan earlier, I've been in the States for 40 years and I still can't speak English, so my bad. Where are you from? Full name and where you're calling from?
Assad Amanovich, I'm from Iowa.
Lovely Iowa.
Yeah.
And your question for Tori?
Hey, Tori. My question is, what is the hardest part of officiating a women's match compared to a men's match? And what's your best advice for overcoming that obstacle?
Oh, that's a loaded one. I think it varies.
I'm staying out of that one.
That's loaded. I think it varies. And I'll give an example. So I did a professional game, and I won't name teams or players, but I had a card administered, and I gave the card, and one of the star players reacted very negatively. And I was like, well, it's clearly a yellow card. And she's like, yeah, but so-and-so slept with so-and-so. And I was like, what? And I was so caught off guard from her reaction and that saying. And all of a sudden I was like in the middle of like a drama. And I was like, I'm refereeing soccer. I don't know what you guys are doing, but like I came here for soccer. And I think the risk that on the women's game, that there are so much emotions and they're so emotionally charged that things happen outside and they bring it into the field. You know, they broke up with their boyfriend, all of a sudden they come with this crazy challenge, and it had nothing to do with maybe that player. It was just something happened in their personal life. Females tend to be so emotionally charged that it's like anything can happen. So I think that is the scariest thing. It's just anything could happen, really. And we really need to be prepared because, like I said, you know, it could be just everything is fine, and then 20 minutes in, whack. And you're like, well, where did it come from? You know, and sometimes there's those soft cues and sometimes there's not. So I think to me, that's the scariest thing is like, what am I getting into today? Like whose boyfriend like knew so and so. Like I'm like, what am I getting into, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me that is the scariest thing. What's yours?
Oh gosh. um.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just that. It's communication. How do you communicate effectively without getting the wrong message across, and making sure you get your point across to them? I think that's can be a really big challenge sometimes.
Sure.
I think what really works for women's games. Sorry to jump in. For me, a referee for 20 plus years. What works for me with women's game is when you are human, when you're showing your human side, they accept that more than if you're trying to be the law enforcer. If you're trying to be a police officer, they don't like that. But if you're more human, more open to understand what they're going through and show your human emotions, they have the tendency to accept your decisions more openly than if you're just trying to push them through.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Richard. The other thing I'd add to that is I always say less is more. I feel like too often we try and get in conversations, and that doesn't always work. What I like to do is I try and do 3 words or less. And I coach that as well, because usually whatever you can say in 3 words or less, right? Like, I got it, I saw it, I'll watch it, I'm here, I see it. Like, you can communicate very effectively with 3 words or less. So I would try that, like, especially if you're maybe somebody who's maybe an introvert or doesn't like to communicate, and you're like, how do I do this? Start with 3 words or less. And you're going to say things that you're going to learn. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, right? That's going to happen. That's part of learning. But get out of your comfort zone and start with just 3 words or less and see what you can do.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's a great
absolutely,
point.
Assad.
Assad, great question. Thank you, and great, Iowa. Stay safe there.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going next. We're gonna have Gordy. Actually, he has a question. Gordy,
Great.
you still around?
I'm hanging around. Still hanging
Okay, go
around here.
ahead.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
your
Tori,
question
thanks
for Tori?
For sure. Tori, thanks for your time. Really appreciate your insights. I was at the summit in St. Louis. Really, really well done, you and Lance. And it's a great refresher. We've taken a lot of your points and worked with our high school and college officials here in Kansas City to talk about that. So thank you.
Fantastic.
My question for you, as working as a board member with our Kansas City chapter and with youth and high school officials here, what would you say are the biggest barriers to recruiting and retaining female officials?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think support is the number one thing. We oftentimes are in unique situations that we can't maybe relate to with our other officials. So the more that we can create camaraderie and have a support system, I think the more likely we are to have success. If I think back on like the couple tipping points in my career when I almost stopped officiating, it was because a mentor or someone, a coach or someone I leaned on, helped me kind of work through that situation, whatever it was. And I think it's really important that we create support systems and mentorship programs, because I think generally speaking, females need that a little bit more, I think, than males do. And there's a lot of us female officials out here. We might be few and far between. You might not see us that often, but there's a lot of us. And when we get together and you get a group of 5 or 10 of us together, there's power in that. So I would recommend, on the recruitment side, bringing them together, letting them see other high performing female officials, and that can be state referees in your own state. Or higher, whatever you might have access to, but letting them see them and talk to them and speak to them about some of the challenges they've been faced with and how do they overcome it. And I think that's really important. When I was coming up, I was told you could never have a family and be a professional referee. And I was like, oh man, that stinks. And here I am, a mother of 3 young ladies. They're not ladies, they're 3 toddlers. But I'm happy to be able to prove that wrong, right? And it took a big support system, right? I'm really close with Christina Uncle as well, who's a mother, and a handful of other officials who are. And I think it's that support system where we can lean on each other in instances where we're trying to figure out how to balance all this stuff. So we, as females, have unique experiences, right? And the more that we can create support systems that we can soundboard off of each other and know we're not alone in those challenges and that others have overcome them, I think that's really important. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate the insight.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a question that was being asked by someone else from Maryland by email. So I believe that kind of answered that question. But isn't that amazing? Actually, I had another question very similar to that. So we do see there is a need out there for some sort of women's program nationwide where we can attract new referees and develop these referees, and most importantly, retain these referees, right? Because I don't have the nationwide numbers, but I know locally we have a big problem with the turnaround with female referees. Do you seem to have that problem in Kansas and in Florida where you're from, Tori?
Yeah, I think it's a general challenge across the board. From a national perspective, I can speak on behalf of NYSOA because I've run the numbers. We operate at about 13.5% of our base membership is female right now. And I have hopes to increase that. And I think it comes back down to the more females can see females in the game, the more likely they are to say, hey, that's possible, right? I think also recruiting athletes is a great place to start, especially retiring or seniors leaving the game. A lot of them are asking what's next, and they're really familiar with the game. They make really great officials. Also at the U17, 16 level, when players are trying to determine whether or not they're going to play collegiately or not, that's another great place to swoop them up and show them officiating. It helps them be better players at the end of the day too. So from a recruitment standpoint, I like those two areas to focus on. And then again, I think it comes down to support. But I agree, Richard, as far as a national program. So hopefully you'll see more from us NYSOA wise in regards to supporting female initiatives like the one that you guys are bringing up in New York.
Yeah, that would be great if we can do something more nationalized.
Yeah,
I have a
and
question.
Rich, if I could,
Go ahead.
could just add briefly there. Yeah, we in Kansas City in our chapter, we have roughly 80 members and probably 5 of them are female, which is I mean, we've got outstanding female officials, but it's difficult. And we struggle with that. Tori, I had shared the story briefly in the pre-show, but we had one of our other members of our board, Ellen was doing a game at a Division II school here in Kansas City, and she walked out. She was on a crew with two male assistant referees, and the home coach, everybody knew them, but the visiting coach, the female, comes over to her and says, "Which one of them are going to be in the middle?" And Ellen said, "I am." And she stopped, and it stopped her in her tracks. She said, "That is fantastic. We don't ever get to see female referees in the middle of our games." And so I said, "Well, then the pressure's on. You can't screw it up now." But no, she was excited about it, and it was a great moment. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but I think it was a great example to her, and hopefully then to her players, like you're saying, that this can kind of cultivate their imagination for what they could participate in after their playing days are over.
And Chris has just become an assigner, and so I've gotten a little bit of access into what that world looks like, and I've been amazed at how many coaches have personally requested for more females, and they're requesting that at all levels of the game, conferences, all the way to the conference administrators. They want more females. They want it to be more reflective, diverse officials that better reflect the students, athletes that are on the pitch, right? So we need to do a better job of making sure that we are being as inclusive as possible and creating those elements of support systems so that we can bring more diversity into the program, whatever that might look like, so that we can better represent what the student athletes look like on the pitch.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And going back to some numbers, we're once we're done with the current course, we'll be at 98 members. And out of the 98, 7% are female. So we have a problem. So we need to figure something out. I think this women's program that we started in July is going to help out a lot, and hopefully we'll be able to push it through other organizations such as Kansas and nearby. We have more questions if you have the time, Tori.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Great. We have one from George Cortez. George, are you there? Where you calling from, and what is your question for Tori?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tori, and thank you, Richard, for allowing this teleconference. Is great. Uh, my question is, my observation I have between men and women games are, as I said, the game has changed, and therefore we are allowing more physical contact, yet make sure that protection to players injuries or anything like that. But the change has changed. It is more physical, and so there is less foul calling, more game flow allowed, and in particular in men's games, where by refereeing women's games, there is an expectation, as I noticed, that they want more foul calling no matter what. Is that a true observation?
I think this depends. It depends on the division to which you're working. I would say in the Division 1 level, there's a higher threshold or a higher tolerance for some of the trifling fouls, some of those things you're talking about, whether that be like kicking at the ankles or the grabbing or the pulling, or some of the trifling fouls that maybe we can let go a little bit to allow to have some of that flow that you speak of. I think as we look at the Division 2 and the Division 3 level, I think it's dangerous to try and take risks and allow flow. I think you have a lower threshold for tolerance there, and I think you'll see players get frustrated. And we spoke a little bit about player reaction earlier, and I will say player reaction, like coach reaction, is an indicator to us. While it shouldn't be all of the puzzle, it is a piece to the puzzle and something we should be aware of. And you can hone in on players' frustration. So if there is a player who's getting kind of whack, 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 and you're letting it go because you want to allow this flow, can you read it on her face, right? Is she frustrated? Do you circle back afterwards and come to her and say, hey, I allowed those challenges through in the midfield. You okay with that? Actually, no, just call him, man. I'm frustrated. Great, no problem, right? And so if I allow some of that flow, I always circle back to players and say, hey, I saw that. You good with me playing through that? Or do you want me to call that? And I think that's a great way to have interaction and also kind of survey your players, right? To get a sense of how tolerant they might be, right? And you have to be aware one player's tolerance might not be representative of the team as well. But I would say that varies, and it varies on the men's side as well. So there are teams and types of, I mean, this presentation is men versus women, right? But you could do this across ethnicities as well, right? So when you take different type of ethnicities, they all expect different types of fouls, and they have different styles and approaches to the game. And I would argue that, there are a lot of different variations there. And this presentation could be done that way, right, across ethnicities as well. But it's important to be aware of what are the players being receiving to, right? And then that one clip that we showed where we had the 3 challenges all at one time, like those are clear fouls that need to be called. Maybe the middle one you could allow because they maintain possession. I wouldn't even say it's advantage. I would say they maintain possession. So maybe you allow that. But outside of that, those fouls need to be called, right? So there's a balance.
Maybe Tari, you can go back to that video and replay it.
Yeah, I think it's the first one. So it might take me a second.
While Tari's doing that, George, where are you calling from?
Central Massachusetts.
Thank you.
And I'm both. I wear different hats. Instructor, assessor, and USSF, ex-national, and college referee also.
All right, thank you for logging in. Thank you for following us through the webinars. Tori, you ready?
Yeah. So here's this clip, and you can see this first challenge. We got a knee right to the back, right? Clearly a foul. We don't call a foul here. We stop the game when the ball goes out. Here's maybe somebody would consider that trifling foul. That could be a foul that's called. Here's same thing. It's a foul, and we're not calling it in any of these instances, right? And so, depending on your, interpretation of that, you might say, hey, these are trifling. But these are, all three of these, I would say, are fouls that need to be called. Does that help, George?
That's great. And also, like as description here shows also depending on how the game is going. And if it's a lot of this stuff going on, then yes. Otherwise, but it's just here and there that happen. Okay, you got one or two situations, but it's not really the whole game going around. Then you can release a little bit, I would suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you can't just focus on certain plays. What you basically need to do. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. I think what we need to do and what works in situations like this is, as a referee, you need to find a balance between technicality and practicality. We have the tendency either to be too technical or too practical, and come into every game facing the games the same way, and that's not the case. Each game should be you should referee each game differently. Like we said it in the first webinar a couple of weeks ago. You as a referee, you're an actor, and you need to play the part, right? We were using Robert De Niro as an example. Robert De Niro at the Godfather versus Robert De Niro at the Meet the Fockers, right? Completely different, but it's still Robert De Niro. So when you're refereeing this game, Colombia Cornell happened to be a Ivy League game, which every game is a final because there is no tournament, right? At the end of the season, whoever has more points is going to go through the NCAA tournament directly. So you need to be going into this game, this specific game, thinking differently. Also, who you're working with, the type of game, what they're playing for, and so on and so forth. What happened the last year? What happened, so on and so forth. So as a referee, you need to find that balance for that game where you may call that foul today and tomorrow you may not call it, but you just need to somehow find that balance between the technicality and practicality so you don't look like you either don't care, all right, or you call in too much. And that is the critical aspect of refereeing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tori.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's constantly a balance, right? And there's instances where there's different approaches I take to every game. To your point, like how do you evaluate what the teams are, what's at stake here, and do I start this game really tight and then loosen it up a little bit? Do I start this game maybe a little loose because I can and then tighten it up? What's my approach to this game? And we should always have an approach that we want to take. And I encourage you, if you don't do that before every game, to definitely do that.
Yeah, no, most definitely. All right, let's move on. We have a lot of questions, good questions. So I'm going to bring in another referee. I'm going to bring in Andrew Kennedy. Hi, Andrew. How are you? Where are you calling from?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Rochester, New York.
Rochester, New York. Western New York. That's the name of the chapter.
I'm calling from Western New York.
Yeah, that's Rochester, NYSOA, right?
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
Your question for Tori?
Yeah, thank you for doing this, Tori. You obviously work primarily at Division I levels, but as that's not where I'm at, I wanted to hear what sort of differences that you found in the attitudes between female players, between a Division I female player and a Division III, whether that be through holding grudges, over distances of time, and just how the play differs between those different levels.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Andrew. I think generally speaking, across divisions, most everything we spoke about holds true. So the grudge holding, the approach to the game, all still primarily holds true. I think what's significantly different between Division I and Division II and III is one, the player's understanding of the rules of the game. So I often find myself, if I'm doing a D2 or D3 game, kind of explaining things a little bit more. Because if I say something with 2 words, they don't maybe necessarily understand what I mean by that. So I find myself explaining a little bit more than I would probably like to, but the players seem to really be hungry for that or need that because maybe they're incorrect in their assessment of something, right? And so I find that happening often. The other thing is the game is different, right? At the Division I level, there's more flow and there's actually less fouls. More the challenges or the cards that we have are typically for tactical in nature, whereas in the D2 and D3, we have a lot more frustrations, I feel like, a lot more dissent, I feel like. And that's just my personal experience. I don't have any stats or facts to back that up. But I think there is a bit of a way that you need to manage the game differently. So at the D1 level, I would start a game with the ability to have more flow because the players tend to have more of a threshold for that, an ability to manage their own frustrations. Whereas in D2 and D3, I'm going to come out and I'm going to keep the game simple because I know it can easily get out of hand. So I call a lot more fouls in D2 and D3 typically than I would at the D1 level. So there's that, I think, is as far as approach that's different for me, at least personally. Andrew, is that helpful?
Yeah, and I agree with Tori. The
Yeah, thank you
acceptance
so
level
much.
is different between the divisions, obviously. Where
Mhm.
while the D1 is closer to a pro level, and while the D3 and the junior college and some other like club soccer, the level of acceptance is different. So I think you need to manage it in a different way, just like you would do in a men's game. It's just the way you approach the players, you approach the game is different, but you still need to be a professional and you still need to call the fouls and you still need to penalize the misconducts. That's where we fall short. We fell short as male officials in female games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Richard. I would say that oftentimes when I work with fellow officials in the D2 and D3 level, like it's almost like they kind of are very relaxed in nature. And I would encourage you to think of the player's perspective when you're coming onto a D2 D3 pitch. Some of these girls are internationals. I've been on a D3 game and had a player who played previously in the World Cup. So that you have the ability to have highly skilled players at that level as well. And we need to make sure that we're taking it just as serious as we would, a big game in a big stadium. You want to get to a big game in a big stadium, it's taking, every little game that you have just as serious as you would and preparing just as focused as you would if this was the championship match. And that's how you get to the championship. It's focusing that much on every game that you do and making sure, everything we do is on videotape, whether it's streamed live or not. But you have to assume every decision you make is a critical one that can be evaluated on film. And if you take your games that serious every time, I guarantee you, one, you'll learn a lot, and two, you'll see a different reaction from players. I think a lot of times they feed off of referees and they eat you alive if they know that you're relaxed or think you have somewhere better to be. And I've seen it all too often, which is why I bring it up. And we need to make sure we take it serious. Is that helpful, Andrew?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Andrea. So yeah, let's not forget that one of the main differences between men's team and a women's team is pride. It's about pride. Let's not forget that in a women's team, if they really don't like each other, it's not going to function. They're not going to play. As a female referee players, if they don't like the team and their teammates, they go somewhere else. While boys, they really don't have to like each other. Usually, they don't like each other. They only have a couple of friends here and there, and more individuality than anything else. While in female teams, it's all about the team. That's why when you're dealing with misconduct, usually now you're dealing with the entire team. It's not just one the player that was fouled, the player that was involved with the misconduct. Now you're dealing with two teams, like 22 players, and the reaction, you don't know where it's going to come from. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tori.
No, that's great.
All right, so we have another question, Caitlin.
Hello.
Hi, Caitlin. How are you? Where full name and where you calling from?
I'm Caitlin Trowbridge, and I'm calling from Texas.
Texas, sunny Texas.
Mm-hmm. My question was in regards to mistakes and failures. So I was wondering, so since all these games are recorded, females might have a little bit more pressure sometimes when it comes to officiating, and being labeled as a female. Even if you're not a female though, do you have any strategies or tips to cope with sort of failures or mistakes that happen during the game that, yeah, just basically that.
Kaylin, thank you so much for that question. That's a great question. Look, we're all human, right? We are going to make mistakes, right? I have never had a perfect game. I don't know if you have, but I frankly don't know any official who has, right?
Absolutely not.
Right, right. And so we need to recognize that, right? And we have the benefit of video, and we also have this like big heavy weight on our shoulders as a result of video, right?
Yeah.
Right. But we have to take it. I always take the approach of like, it's good because I get to go and review it, right? Like I remember coming up and being like, yeah, I got that right. Of course I got that right. I probably got that wrong, you know, but I never had any video to validate that, right? And now I'm at the level where most every game I do, I can go back and I look at the film, and I don't just watch it once. Ask Chris. I watch it 3 and 4 times, probably to my demise, because females, we tend to be a little bit more harsh on ourselves than we need to be, and we need to recognize that as well. But yeah, I look at everything from my positioning to if I was or was not in frame and why not, to even, you know, the big decisions, sure, but I also look at every little one as well and what led me to get there. And so I'm very critical when it comes to film, and I think it's a benefit for us. And if you've never had the opportunity of seeing yourself on film, I definitely recommend it. I remember when I first started, somebody said, "You run like a girl," and I was like, "What? Well, yeah, yeah, like I am a girl. I don't really know what that means, right?" And then I saw myself on film for the first time, and I was like, "Wow, I run like a girl." All of a sudden, it hit me, right? And what he meant when he said that was, I didn't look athletic, and I wasn't running like I would as a player or when I played. Like I looked silly, right? I didn't look like I belonged, and that was really eye-opening for me to be able to see myself and say, "Oh wow, that is not what I want to project." Right? I want to be an athlete. I want to be seamless on that pitch, and so I was able to make changes. It took time, trust me, but I was able to modify the way in which I ran as a result of being able to see myself on film. So all that to say, we need to take this as an approach to learning that is super positive. So when we make mistakes, it's not like, oh shit, we messed up. Excuse my language. But it's like, great, what an opportunity to learn. Why did I miss it? How did I miss it? And how do I make sure I don't do that again? Right?
Right.
And so I've had plenty of instances this year alone. I've had plenty of instances, right? And so, you know, looking back at last year's season, there's a couple decisions that still sit with me. I still argue with Alec Cruz about one decision, and I still show the clip to everyone I possibly know to make sure that I get as many knocks on my Tories vote as possible. But that's the beauty of this game too, right? Is a lot of our decisions are very gray, and they're not always going to be a right or wrong or a this or a that. It's going to be very situational, right? And so we have to be comfortable in that uncomfortable unknown sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, as a place we have to play. And, you know, some of those games that don't go well, they sit with us longer. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Experiences teach us something. There's a reason why people say you need more experience before you can get to that level, right? As frustrating as it is to hear that, it's true. And the reason is because, you know, the more we experience, the more we're able to say, oh, I know. Like it drives me crazy when referees like turn their back during the dead ball situations. It always tells me that they haven't been in an experience where something went wrong.
Yeah.
And so I always say, learn from my experiences and turn around and face the ball because something's going to happen, right? And so you can learn not only from your own mistakes, but others as well. So, you know, not all referees on TV do all the right things either, right? So when we watch referees on TV, we should also be critical and say, why did they do that? Or how did they make that decision? Or why were they in that position? And be critical. And that's how we learn. And soundboard off of others and share with others. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. And don't be afraid to share your mistakes when you make them. I've made plenty, trust me. It's how I've gotten to where I've gotten. I think the hardest thing we can do is not be honest with ourselves when we do make mistakes. And as far as, you know, how do you get past them? Well, teach me. I don't know, Caitlin. You know, there's a couple that stick with me, and now I know, like, I will not miss another dogso in a professional match, like, knock on wood. But, you know, I missed one last year, and it stuck with me for a long time. And I know why I did what I did, and I learned from that experience. and I just taught a lesson on Doxo today. So we evolve, and those experiences stick with us. I had somebody reach out to me about a question, and I personally was able to say, trust me, because I thought this was a yellow card once because I thought that they had made contact with the foot, but the primary reason that that player was brought down was because of the hand, and therefore it's holding, and therefore it's a red card. So because of my personal experience and the one I missed, I'm able to articulate that very clearly. And I think that's really helpful to share that experience, you know. But look, none of us are perfect, and if we think we're perfect, we're wrong. Okay. And the reality is we need to be okay with making mistakes, and you know, it's okay admitting it, even on the field, not more than once or twice, right? Like you'll get eaten alive. But you know, if I make a mistake on the pitch, you know, sometimes I admit to that, right? Hey, maybe I got that wrong. I didn't get a good look at it. I'm sorry, right? You can't use that all the time, but we're human. And you know, if I have a snarky player, sometimes I'll say something like, hey, look, I didn't critique you when you missed that pass, right? Or you missed that shot, right? Give me a break, I'm human. I don't use that all the time, right? You have to selective, but we're all human, and we need to be, you know, give ourselves a little space for that. But yeah, learning and getting past it isn't easy, Caitlin. And if you find out how to let things go, let me know, okay?
I know the saying that that is, if you don't make it to the big screen in front of all the referees at a clinic, you haven't made it yet.
There it is.
Hopefully that comes and goes quickly.
Right. And don't be afraid. Don't, you know, fear is the worst thing. Don't be afraid to fail. Like fail flat on your face. Fail flat on your face on the big screen in front of all your fellow referees. Don't be afraid to fail, right? Have the courage to make the most unpopular decisions. Chris always says that. That's what refereeing is having the courage to make sometimes the most unpopular decision, but the right one, you know? And if you live in a space of fear and afraid to make a wrong decision, well, then you're not going to make the right one, you know?
Yeah.
Because we have to make big, hairy decisions, you know? And that's part of the job. That's what we sign up for. It's part of the fun. That's part of the energy. It's part of the, you know, gets me all excited when I get on the pitch. I'm like, oh, great. What are we going to have today? You know? But don't be afraid to fail. We've all done it. And I'm happy if you want a sidebar, I can share you all my failures. I can share with you one after another, and we can have a good laugh of it. But as long as we're learning, hey, we're falling forward, right? That's the key.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
That was a great question. Thank you, Kayleen. And I hope the male referees were paying attention to the conversation, because as we've been saying, the game, the players, they play differently and they think differently. And when it comes to referees, we think differently. You see how proud Caitlin is about what she's doing, and how proud Tori is about what she's doing, and how the two of them trying to find ways to create a safety net, right? And this is what's happening during our games. When the players are out there, these women's games, they're actually they're protecting each other, and they doing it for pride, right? So you can't face a women's game the same way, because it's not going to work. It's the same game, yes. There's same fouls, yes. Same misconducts, yes. You need to deal with the misconducts, but you need to approach the game differently, and that's key. That's very important. So I'm glad that Kayleen asked that question, because that was beautiful. And I have a tip for you, Kayleen. You may take it, you may not take it, but the truth is, when you sign up as a referee, you sign up to deal with conflict, and that includes your own dealing with your own emotions. So yeah, we only getting paid to make a couple of calls during the games, the ones that we actually need a referee for. And we're not going to get them 100% right all the time. But don't forget that if you use every single game as a teaching moment, it will teach you how to do better tomorrow. You know, you need to fail to become an expert. So I'm hoping that whoever you're working with, they have a program behind you to create a safety net, that if you ever need help, they can give you that help. But if you don't, I'm sure Tori will be willing to take your phone call whenever that's needed. And I'll be willing to take that email, phone call if you ever need it. We are referees, and sometimes, you know, we hit our face to the ground, and we need a phone call every once in a while. Correct, Tori?
Absolutely. I've made a lot of those in my career. But yeah, no, we're all one big family. And especially here at NYSOA, I can't speak more of a family feeling than we have at the NYSOA level. So of course, if you guys ever have a tough game and need a soundboard, want to show me a clip, myself and Chris, while he's not on this phone, he's connected to me. We are always available and happy to help any way that we can, for sure.
That's great. We have another question now from Tad from Maryland. This is more like a technical and admin question. Let's see if we can find him here.
Now
Mr.
I'm unmuted.
Dawson.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Full name, where you calling from, and if you have a title, go right ahead. And what is your question?
Tad Dawson. I'm out of Maryland. Title, yeah, referee. That'll work.
That's a good title.
That works. I got plenty of other ones they call me, but I'll go with that one for now. Tori, I'm really excited to see your energy and passion and what you're bringing to the game. And probably out of the 100 or so people more that are on the call tonight, quite a few of them have been around for a while. So I'm happy to see some younger stuff. I deal a lot with recruiting and retention of youth and high school and college referees in Maryland. And I've found that most of the recruiting is a bunch of old guys. So my question, I have two questions. One, can we get a video of you recruiting that can go to every high school coach and college coach that gives the benefits of officiating? And then I guess the second part would be, who recruited you to come as a referee?
Wow. Well, thank you, Todd. I share the title of referee with you, so it's not a bad one. Thank you for your question. That's great. I would love to do a video. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm happy to help orchestrate that if that is helpful for you guys, for sure. And then as far as personally, I was recruited by my mom. She's the best recruiter anybody can have. Yeah, I was, what was I, 12, 14, something like that. And it was time for me to get out of the house and get a job. And all my friends were getting jobs at the mall, and she was like, why don't you go work at the soccer field where you can get paid cash and be at the field where you love to be anyway? And I was like, oh, sure, that sounds like fun. And I got handed wads of cash, and I was like, this is cool, right? And so that was my experience, and I kind of stuck with it and had some cool opportunities and ran with it. When it comes to recruiting, what I love to do, so, a lot of times I'm out mentoring at some of these collegiate showcases, and sometimes I'm, all ruffled up in soccer clothes and sitting on one of those, what looks like a coach's chair, right? And so I get a lot of these parents that come by with their pamphlets of all their students, right? And they come by and they're like, oh, are you a coach? And I'm like, no, but I am a referee. And let me tell you, and I spend a few minutes talking to that parent, because I guarantee you, every person on her sheet of paper isn't going to go play college, right? And so that's an opportunity. Every one of those kids that don't go and play full-time college is an opportunity for us. And I also tell them, like, the personal experience that I've had, the skills that we develop as officials translate into whatever profession it is that we do. I don't care what it is, but your ability to make quick decisions on the spot based on limited information, have to communicate that effectively, and stand by that decision, is tough work, not just physically and mentally, but the whole gamut, right? And that teaches us skills of how to communicate and how to sell a decision and all these things that we can use in our personal lives. And it's made me better as a professional, and I'm a marketing professional. And I always tell that to parents is an opportunity for recruitment is just, it's going to help them be a better rounded person. And if they love the game, it allows them to stick around to it. But also they become better players because they actually learn the rules, which half the players don't, right?
And how to bend them.
Those are some, right. So those are some of the things I like to talk to parents about, but I would say, yeah, recruit with young people. I don't know who you have in your state, but anybody who can, I've talked to NYSOA about, let's develop a little pamphlet that we can distribute that has some of those benefits that when we are out at events, we can easily hand out, because I think that's just spreading the word and the positivity of officiating and what it brings back to us individually and collectively, I think is really important, because we hear in the news all these bad stories about referees being yelled at. And sure, we get yelled at. Yeah, we do. And sometimes it's inappropriate. Absolutely. But inappropriate things are going to happen throughout your life, right? And learning how to deal with that and how to approach situations and how to overcome that is really important as well. Yeah, Todd, I think it's a great idea. Let's maybe take it offline, shoot me an email, and let's circle
Will
back
do.
on the video and what you might need there and what you're looking for. And I'd be happy to help.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Great question.
Thank you, Tad. Thank you. We're gonna be sharing your information later. I have another question about, actually multiple questions regarding um, the flow of the game, the differences between women's games and men's games. Is there any way we can play back that video where we had the player who throw the punch with that build up?
Yeah, the Boise one.
Yeah, that one. If we can play that one, yeah, play that one. All the there you go. All the there you have it. All the signals are there. All the signs are there. We need to recognize that, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna have I'm gonna call in Patrick.
And
So
even
he can-
here on this clip, Richard. Oh, let me see.
Go ahead.
Hold on. How do I play it?
While you're doing that, I'll get Patrick so he can ask his question. And I think
Yeah, so you had mentioned this dialogue that they have here, and the referee doesn't pick on it. But what happens next is we have this challenge in the middle of the field, and the referee is slow to give this foul. For what reason? Right? So I think we need to be decisive in these moments, right? We just had some players, there's frustrations, like a quick call here, it's in the middle of the field. What advantage are you calling here, right? We got to remember that possession is not advantage, and then it results in this, right? Go ahead, Richard. You had somebody?
yeah, I have Patrick, but unfortunately I cannot get him to open up his microphone. But we do have somebody else actually from Canada with a similar question, and I think it's related to this video, and I think the answers are here. So let me find my friend from California. I'm sorry, from Canada. What's up, buddy? My Canadian
Hello.
friend. How are you? Full name and where you calling from in Canada, and your question.
Oh, hi, this is Leif from Canada. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead. What's your question for Tori?
Nice to hear your voice, Tori. We met at Disney. Very wonderful session you had over there. My question, I had a couple of questions that I've sent. One of them actually is the easy one, which is the videos. If you could, if you have the time, you could run through some of these clips and just how would you call these and the sanctions?
Sure. So this one I think is easy. You can see right here that, oops, the players are already having the banter, right? So as a referee, right here, oh, I don't know why I can't pause it. Let me escape out of here. There you go. So right here you can see the banter happening. I'm right within proximity. I'm saying something. So as I'm jogging past them, I'm saying knock it off. And if I see that shove, which we need to see that shove, my tone changes. So I go from, hey guys, knock it off, to much louder, much more assertive, and I kind of bark at them, I would, because now we've had contact, right? And now I'm watching them. And I would even say it on my comms or my mics, hey guys, number X and Y, keep an eye out on them, because I've seen their banter, right? And so we allow play to continue. And then we have this foul right here, right? And yes, the ball's going to another blue player. Where is she going with it, right? Possession is not advantage. So in this instance, just call the foul, right? Because now we're going to allow this player to come in and potentially have another challenge, right? So it's important for us to just keep it simple, especially in the midfield. You know, there's no reason, there's little opportunity for us to have risk in the middle of the field. So in this instance, I would call the simple foul. As soon as you allow it to play a little bit, the players feel this hesitation in us, and they start to say, does this guy really, is he here with us today? Is he following? Is he seeing what's happening? As soon as they any delay in our whistle like that, they eat us up. And so if there's a delay in our whistle, it needs to be for a reason. Like, hey, I was waiting to see if number so-and-so was going to get the ball and we were going to have advantage, right? But outside of that, we really shouldn't have much delay. It should be pretty instantaneous. So then the referee goes to the spot of the foul, right? Why do we go to the spot of the foul here? Because what it does is it takes them away from the drop zone, right?
Okay.
So
Exactly.
where the ball's about to be played, right? Which is where everyone's going and where we really need to be. And do we really care which blade of grass the ball is being set on? Not particularly.
No, not
Particularly
really.
in the middle of the field. Yeah, the middle of the field's not going to do us much good, right?
Sorry to butt in here. Can you make that that one a little bit bigger now since it's stopped? So that way they can see exactly what we're talking about. There you go. Oh, don't you hate that?
Here, I got it though. I got it. I think I figured it out. Okay.
Perfect.
So he's perfect. So he's got the blade of grass he's spotting, right? In the middle of the field, if it's 5 yards off, you know, negative or positive or left or right, whatever, right? 3 to 5 yards, let it be, right? If it's 8 to 10, hey, let's use our whistle and let's get it in the right vicinity, right? But let's really not be too particular. The girls know where the foul is, right? They know where it's going to restart. Give them the respect that they know where it's going to be. And when they start to put it somewhere else, then maybe you mitigate, yeah? So here I wouldn't be here. I would be where the drop zone is, particularly if I recognize that these two players had already had some words. And if I was aware of that, then I certainly wouldn't be putting my back to them. But yes, so now they have got this, right? And so this is, I think, a really great example of, as ARs, how are we paying attention, right? So did our referee inform us? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. And either way, two players coming together, we always need to watch. Because this is what players do. And while we may be naive and think it doesn't happen, they do this, they pinch, they step on feet, they step on heels, they do dirty, dirty things. And we need to not trust them so much, unfortunately, but we need to watch what's happening. And anytime we've got two players of opposing teams coming together, our awareness needs to be. So I would expect this AR to have some information, and I don't think he has it all. So then the player reacts, right? And then you have other players reacting. And so this should tell us we missed something, right? And so we need to be aware of that as well. So what, like I said, player signals tell us something. We have a gut, right? And sometimes we miss calls, but our gut might say, ooh, I missed something. What happened? And maybe you just call those two girls over and just have a word with them. Maybe you don't even know what happened. Hopefully you've seen it or your AR has. But at least we need to be mitigating it. And so those are some tips. When I look at this clip, those are the instances that make me want to stop. Is that helpful?
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
Thank
Is
you.
there another clip that you wanted to see?
Well, I was hoping that we can go through all the clips, but I don't think the time will allow.
It won't, but I'll do one more if you really want it.
Sure.
Yeah, going back to this one real quick, let's look at the time. Let's see. This isn't just something that just built up. We're looking at an overtime with 8 minutes, right? First overtime, correct? So we know at the college soccer what that means. Someone wants to win, they tired, and this is when you actually need to referee. You're getting paid to referee now, not the first 70 minutes of the game. You actually get paid to referee the final 20 minutes and the overtime. So for those of you that complain because your game went to overtime, guess what? That's what you're getting paid, to referee 100% with the overtime. So we need to be on our on our heels here and actually concentrate and find some help.
And concentration, focus. When we go into overtime, it's not time for us to shut down, right? That's when things happen, and we need to be, aware, focused, and ready for it. Thanks, Richard.
All right, I thank you, Laith, for the question. We're gonna review another one here, and while Tori's putting another one up, I'm gonna get somebody else in.
Sure.
Thank
Is there
you again.
another one you guys wanted me to go through?
I'm gonna bring Patrick. He's gonna be. Patrick is gonna finally he's able to talk. Has to do with game flow management, the differences between the men's and women's games and stuff like that. So while Tori's showing that question, Patrick, go on where you're calling from, etc., and lower your
yes.
speaker or something.
Tori, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. My name's Patrick Violet. I referee in the Northeast in Connecticut. And I'm very fortunate in that we have a large amount of schools here that are both in the men's and the women's side. And in the past few years, I found seasons where I'm either officiating a lot of women's games or a lot of men's games. And then some other years where I'm doing a mix of both. The years where I'm doing a mix of both is very challenging, going back and forth. And my question is, I am seeing in the last few years, although I appreciate the differences in your presentation, I'm seeing an uptick in the physicality of women's games, quite a bit. And I was wondering your thoughts on that. And I find myself in some of the games in the women's side, especially in the last couple of years, a lot of cards, high foul count, and Division I games. So are you seeing this trend? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Patrick. I don't know that I am experiencing the same thing. I would say that the women have a high threshold at the Division I level for challenges, and when it comes to that, I would say that we encourage what we allow. So I would say as officials, we need to make sure that we are calling fouls. What I'm seeing is a lot of clips of officials, like I've shown here today, where we have challenges that need to be called that aren't called, and then they escalate into other situations. When it comes to the average number of fouls, so we run on the women's side on average between 12 and 14 fouls, and on the men's side, it's in the 20s. So there is still a big discrepancy in the number of fouls between the men's and the women's side. And so there might be women's games that you are seeing that are increasing, but on an average and as a whole, we're definitely under as it relates to number of fouls. And then same on the cards, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but definitely in the professional level, there's a lot more cards in the men's game than women's. And I think it's like 1.1 on the women's side. But I don't have those facts on the college side, but I would say, I'm not personally experiencing that. And I would encourage us as officials to make sure that we're calling those fouls, because I will say I do see a lot of officials allowing play to continue. And just because the players aren't reacting and they may have a high pain tolerance or threshold, it doesn't mean that we need to allow play to continue. So I think that's a big difference in the men's and women's game, whereas in the men's side, if you don't call a foul, they react instantly, right? On the women's side, they won't say anything until it boils over. They'll handle it themselves, like we saw in that Boise clip, before they even say anything to the referee. So I think that's some things that we need to be aware of. But yeah, I can't say that I have personally experienced it.
Okay.
They're definitely stronger, that's for sure, than they have.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing that also, that the athleticism, the speed, and the physicality in some of the games is increasing. And I've had high foul counts in women's games last year in the high teens.
Yeah, 12 to 14 is average. We have games as low as 4, some teams on average as low as 4. But we typically reside somewhere between 10 and 14.
Okay.
Thank you for your question, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. Good question. You have the clip ready there?
I
Maybe
do.
we can do a little game management there. What would you do and what works at the college level?
Yeah, and I'll show you guys this clip. And again, I feel like we're being highly critical of the officials here, and that's not the intent, right? So this is all learning. So hopefully we're not taking anything outside of that context. This is a safe environment where we're just here to learn. So let's take a look at this clip. This is the one that had the elbow to the back of the head. And there's a couple things that are important to note. So first, it's a long ball, right? And as referees, we are static. And so we need to be moving. We don't see, unfortunately, where this ball comes from to be able to say what could we have done differently just before it. But the ball's already in air. And so I would expect us to be already in a sprint because we know where it's going, right? And so we need to be sprinting so that we can close up this proximity. The good news is the referee's on this side, so he has a really good angle of what is really minor contact. Like the elbow is very difficult to see if you're in full sprint, frankly. And so we have the two players, she's trying to shield it, the other player comes over the top. And so here, the body language, if we're gonna give a red card, I'm sprinting into that area to administer that red card. But like women's soccer, like we've talked about, like nobody's really reacting, right? This player's down because she's injured, right? But nobody's really reacting. In a men's game, this happened, you'd have, 3, 4 guys running in to deal with this player, but you're not really seeing that here. Which doesn't mean it's not a red card, right? It just means this happened. So if it's me, I'm sprinting in here to administer this. I'm also, we have a potential head injury, right? So we've been elbow to a head. There's no risk on waving in a trainer on this instance. So I would immediately attend to this player, administer this card. And then there's a couple things about the referee's body language that I'm personally not a fan of. So when we give yellow cards, you'll notice here, he actually doesn't even make eye contact with the player. And so when we talk about respect and the need for that, we want to make sure that we have eye contact with players and speak, whatever the words are that we're using to describe as to why we're administering it. We want to be really clear. But I'd make sure that we make eye contact, hold that eye contact. I think that just shows mutual respect for players, and players like to see that as well. For me, I don't think that this white player deserves a yellow card. I think for me, this is simply a red card to the red player here. The white player's, unfortunately, the victim of something that is very, very violent and unnecessary in the game. So this referee is a bit more relaxed. That's his approach. If I see this in my game, I'm upset. I'm frankly appalled that this player would do this in my match, and I'm probably running in there, administering that red card quickly, getting right over to the player with a little more urgency, making sure she's okay, or waving on the trainer immediately. So those are some things I'd like to see a little bit differently in this clip. But again, it really all comes from this ball, this long ball, and making sure we're in a good position. Ideally, we'd like to be about here. Can you guys see my mouse? I hope so.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. So yeah, so I would ideally like us to be here, and we can't say if that's even possible because it's hard to see where the ball's coming from. But right here, we'd be in great proximity and angle of view. Luckily, he has that angle and he's able to see it, because this is one that could have easily been missed. So good for the refereeing crew to get this right. But I'd like to see a little bit more urgency. When we're giving a red card, it's a big decision in a match, and we want our body language to mirror that. So those are some things that maybe a little different there. Anything to add, Richard?
Yeah, no, this is a great video for the differences between a men's game and a women's game. Number one, the sim play and the men's game, we'll be dealing with mass confrontation, right? Because of like you've been saying it all day long. Women have the tendency to take more and then deal with it later. Then, well, men right there, we will have a game disrepute turn it immediately into a mass confrontation, and we'll most likely issue a red card and couple of yellows if we're lucky. So, being that said, like you've been saying it all along, a foul is a foul, misconduct is a misconduct, and whatever you do in a men's game, you should actually use the same mechanics. There should be no reason for you not to manage this situation the same way by sprinting to position with a red card. So let everybody know that you got this player, you know what happened, and immediately call in a trainer, like you said. Any contact to the head or about the shoulder in a college game, let's not forget we're dealing with a student athlete, so it's extremely important for us to deal with those type of contacts immediately and call in a trainer. Even if nothing happens, at least we covering ourselves by showing that we providing a safe environment for these student athletes. So I think this is a great video, because you show the differences on between the two different games, men's and women. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good clip to exemplify that. And I think as referees, if you have players running in a men's game, all of a sudden you have to start running in, right? And so you're reactive to that, right? But we need to go in with urgency because we have a player who's done something very violent in our game, and we need to have that urgency and empathy for the player who's injured as well, right? And all the players see our body language. When we walk or saunter, if you will, from 30 yards away, it sends a signal, right? And is it the signal that we want to send? Well, it's the right decision. When we talked with Caitlin earlier about the right decisions and the wrong decisions, even when we get the decisions right, there's always opportunity for us to evaluate and see how could we do this a little bit better or a little bit different next time. And so hopefully we can take some things away from this one.
No, most definitely. It's a great video. We're running out of time now. We may have time for one more video, but definitely don't have more time for questions. And but we do have, believe it or not, for the entire 2 hours, we have Dr. Joe listening, and which happened to be he's the coordinator for one of the women's conferences here, the Northeastern Conference, the NEC. He's the women's soccer coordinator. And maybe how are you, Dr. Joe?
I'm here. Thank you. I'm fine. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I was wondering what the restart was on this play because I think the red shaded player also gets carded.
Yes, she does. And I don't think we get to see the restart. No, we only see the replay.
So, I mean, he gives the card outside of the penalty area, but if the elbow is inside the penalty area, then we've got a penalty kick here.
Nah, I'm not giving the white player a yellow card, so I've got to.
No, for the elbow.
The red player is the attacker.
I got it. Well, send off.
Mm-hmm. Very violent one, yes.
At least we got that right. So, Dr. Joe, thank you for listening. And do you have any questions for Tori? Any final commentary before we go?
No, actually, this is my second time seeing this presentation, having been at the summit in St. Louis. I think it's a fantastic presentation, and that's why I asked 135 referees that belong to Northeast Conference Women's Soccer Division to tune in, and I know some of the questions came from them.
That's very good. That's great.
Thank you, Dr. Joe, for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Thank you,
Great
Dr. Joe. All right, so that was Dr. Joe, and we have many other referees out there, but if we invite everybody in, we'll be here until tomorrow morning, and that's not going to be nice for your family and my family. I don't feel like sleeping out tonight because since I'm dealing with bears out here, I really don't want to sleep outside. Tori, thank you very much. Any final thought, any final words before we go?
No, thank you so much, Richard, for putting this together. I know we are all, in our confounds of our safe homes and hopefully all healthy and doing well. And this has been a great resource. So thank you so much for putting this together and giving us the opportunity to all come together today and hopefully learn a little bit from each other. And like I said earlier, my contact is available. It was on that last slide. I'm sure Rich will send it out. And we are all part of the referee family. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm available, whether it's, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, phone, whatever method you need. I'm here for you guys and happy to soundboard as well. So hopeful the season kicks off and we get to see each other on the pitch soon. But thank you so much, Richard, for having me. It was a great pleasure.
No, thank you for backing us up with this crazy idea. It was a crazy idea that was meant to be for 10, 15 referees a weekend, and we end up with over 400 sign-ups every week. So that is amazing. Victoria, if you want to say a final word before we go.
Yeah, hi, this is Victoria Catanzaro. I'm working with Rockland Westchester. We're starting this women's program, so we're looking to not only recruit but also retain women's referees within our chapter and provide just what Tori talked about in terms of camaraderie and building a system and making sure that we have a space for female referees such as myself and others to really build and move up and stay within the sport. So if you want more information on that, you can go to our website. Feel free to reach out to me as well, or Rich, and we can get you guys more information on that as well. But again, just trying to build that community and get everybody involved and stay in the sport that we all love.
All right, great. Thank you, Victoria. And thank you, Tori, again. Great presentation.
Yeah. One more thing, Richard, if I could do a plugless shout out. We have
sure.
our NYSOA membership survey that is out. And we're planning to close it in the next couple of days. So if you haven't taken the time to fill it out, it takes about 10 minutes max. It's it's just over 10 questions, but it'll help us as an organization put together programs like this one that Richard is leading from a webinar perspective, and a variety of other educational platforms. So would love your guys' help to fill out that survey. It'll help us better understand what your guys' needs are. So take a few minutes if you can to fill that out, and that is also on the website and on our Facebook as well. But thanks, Richard.
No, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, NYSOA, and thank you, the NYSOA Foundation, and Mark and Lance, and our new elected president, Mark, and everybody else from NYSOA. Thank you for your support. Next week, next Friday, we have our calendar is going to be full. Number one, RWISOA is going to have our rules interpretation for the 2020 season done on online through the webinar, done by Ryan, coming right fresh from the oven, the new rules for 2020. So we're gonna have an official interpretation for our chapter, and I'm hoping other chapters will allow their members to use this webinar as part of their mandatory rules interpretation meeting, since we don't know what's going to happen with this COVID-19. We hope we'll be good by September, but we don't know what's going to happen during the summer, since we don't know. Our chapter decided to have our rules interpretation, official rules interpretation, done online through the webinar. So that's going to be done by Ryan early, starting at 7 o'clock, 7:05 or so. Prior to that, we're going to have members from different chapters coming in and talk about their chapters and the things that we're doing, and we're gonna have a special guest coming in as well, and we're gonna have Chico Grajeda and Rodolfo Otero doing a great presentation about communication. Rodolfo was one of the ARs from the 2006 World Cup final between France and Italy. He's actually one of the ARs who took a goal away from Italy, Google taken away from a very close upside, which was good, great decision. And he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about a goal that was given on a PK for France. And most importantly, for the old timers, you remember that famous red car with Zidane. And so he's going to talk about the communication between the crew and how they came across, how they came up with the misconduct and how to deal with it. So it's going to be pretty amazing. And Chico, we all know Chico has been around for a very long time. And 2013 MLS Referee of the Year, he did that year. He did the MLS Cup, and then a couple of years later, I think 2017, he did the U.S. Open final. And I believe the same year he did the NCAA Men's Cup final. So we have great speakers next week. So hope everybody come in next week and join us. So we're done for today. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you Friday. Thank you very much.